The flames climbed high into the night sky, turning the darkness into a hellish orange glow. Screams echoed through the Apache village as shadows moved between the burning teepees, men with rifles, faces twisted with hatred and greed. In the center of the chaos stood Major Curtis Harlan, his gray eyes reflecting the inferno around him. His silver beard caught the firelight as he surveyed the destruction with cold satisfaction. Beside him, a woman with copper skin and dark auburn hair watched the massacre, her face a mask of forced indifference. Bianca Reed's mixed heritage was evident in her features, the high cheekbones of her Apache blood softened by her white father's influence. "Find the chief," Harlan barked at his men, "and the medallion. Kill anyone who resists." Bianca's eyes darted nervously between the burning structures. This was further than she had planned to go. Revenge against her father's people, yes. Acquiring the treasure, absolutely. But this wholesale slaughter. At the edge of the village, Chief Broken Arrow dropped to one knee behind his lodge, pulling his daughter close. Blood streamed from a wound on his shoulder, but his hands remained steady as he removed the silver medallion from his neck. The firelight caught the ancient Apache symbols etched into its surface. "Adia," he whispered urgently, pressing the medallion into his daughter's palm. "You must run. Take this to the soul healer." Adia's eyes widened, her fingers closing around the cool metal. "Father, I cannot leave you." "You must," he insisted, glancing over his shoulder at the approaching footsteps. "The medallion must reach him. Only he can help our people now." "Who is this man? Where will I find him?" The chief's weathered face softened for just a moment. "Your mother knew him, the white healer who once saved our people. Follow the river north to where the mountains touch the sky, a valley with a lone cabin." He pressed something else into her hand, a folded piece of paper, yellowed with age. "He will know this." Gunfire erupted nearby. The chief pushed his daughter toward the darkness of the forest. "Go. Remember who you are, daughter of Broken Arrow. The future of our people rests with you now." Adia hesitated for one heartbeat, memorizing her father's face in the firelight, then turned and disappeared into the shadows. Behind her, she heard her father's war cry rise up, followed by more gunshots. She ran faster, tears streaming down her face, the medallion clutched tightly against her chest. The forest swallowed her as she ran, branches whipping against her skin. She could still hear screams from the village, still smell the smoke. When she reached the river, she splashed across the shallow water, hoping it would hide her trail. Pain shot through her ankle as she slipped on a wet stone, but she pushed onward, the medallion a cold reminder of her duty against her skin. The village was far behind her when she finally found a horse, one that had broken free during the attack. With skills born of a lifetime on horseback, she caught and mounted the frightened animal, urging it northward along the river. "Find the soul healer," she whispered to herself as the horse galloped through the moonlight. "Find the man who can save us all." Nathan Reed awoke with a start, his body drenched in sweat despite the cool night air. The nightmare still clung to him, blood on his hands, not from battle but from the operating table. The faces of men he couldn't save blended with those he had killed, all staring at him with accusing eyes. He sat up in his narrow bed, rubbing a hand across his face. The cabin was silent except for the occasional creak of the wooden beam settling. Dawn was still hours away. He reached for the drawer beside his bed, pulling out a bottle of whiskey in a small tarnished glass. As he poured, his eyes fell on the revolver that lay beside the bottle, an old Colt .45 that hadn't been fired in years but remained loaded nonetheless. The liquor burned his throat, a familiar comfort. He didn't bother lighting a lamp. The darkness suited him better anyway. Through the window, he could see the silhouette of the mountains against the star-filled sky. 5 years he'd been here, building this place from nothing after leaving his old life behind. 5 years of solitude, broken only by occasional trips to town for supplies or when someone in the area needed medical attention. The cabin was half home, half medical clinic. One corner held shelves of medicines, bandages, and surgical tools. A sturdy table served as an operating surface when needed. The rest was sparse, a small kitchen area, a desk covered with medical journals, a few bookshelves. Nothing to suggest the man who lived here had once been known throughout the territories as Cold-Blooded Reed, one of the deadliest gunslingers west of the Mississippi. Nathan downed the rest of his whiskey and stood, knowing sleep would elude him now. He pulled on a shirt, watching his hands in the dim moonlight, hands that had both taken and saved lives. The irony wasn't lost on him. The skills that once made him a feared killer now served him as a physician. Outside, the air was crisp with the promise of autumn. Nathan stepped onto the porch, surveying his small ranch in the pre-dawn light. A modest barn stood 50 yards from the cabin, housing 2 horses and a milk cow. Beyond that stretched a fenced pasture, a vegetable garden, and the beginnings of an orchard, apple trees still too young to bear much fruit. To the east, a creek cut through his property, providing fresh water year-round. He walked to the pump by the side of the cabin and splashed cold water on his face, trying to wash away the remnants of the nightmare. As he straightened, he caught sight of himself in the small shaving mirror hanging nearby. A stranger looked back at him, a man of 45 with deep-set blue eyes and a face weathered by sun and hardship. His once black hair was streaked with gray, his beard fuller than he usually kept it. The scar that ran along his jawline, a reminder of a knife fight in Dodge City, stood out pale against his tan skin. With the nightmare still fresh, Nathan decided to begin his chores early. He fed the animals, mended a broken fence post, and checked his vegetable garden. Physical labor helped quiet the voices in his head, the memories of who he had been. By late afternoon, the sun hung low on the western horizon, casting long shadows across the land. Nathan paused in his work, leaning on his shovel, something in the air making him uneasy. Years of survival had taught him to trust his instincts. He scanned the horizon, seeing nothing unusual, but the feeling persisted. That's when he heard it, a faint cry carried on the wind, so soft he might have imagined it. He tilted his head, listening. There it was again, from the direction of the creek. Not an animal, too human, too filled with pain. Nathan abandoned his shovel and strode to the cabin. Moments later, he emerged with his medical bag in one hand and the old Colt strapped to his hip. A doctor prepared for trouble. He moved toward the creek with the careful precision of a man accustomed to danger. Eyes scanning for movement, ears attuned to every sound. The creek was swollen from recent rains, rushing over rocks and fallen branches. He followed it downstream, where the banks grew steeper and lined with cottonwoods. The sun was setting in earnest now, painting the landscape in gold and crimson. As he rounded a bend in the creek, Nathan saw her. A woman collapsed near the water's edge, one leg bent at an unnatural angle. Blood stained her buckskin dress, and her long black hair was matted with dirt and twigs. Even from a distance, he recognized her as Apache. She wasn't moving. Nathan approached cautiously, his hand hovering near his gun. The woman lay motionless, face turned away from him. Nearby hoofprints in the soft mud told the story of a horse that had bolted, likely throwing its rider. "Ma'am," he called softly. No response. He knelt beside her, setting his medical bag down. With practiced hands, he checked for a pulse at her neck. It was there, rapid but strong. Her skin burned with fever. When he gently rolled her onto her back, he saw the extent of her injuries. Her right leg was clearly broken below the knee, a compound fracture with the bone pressing dangerously against the skin. Various cuts and bruises marked her arms and face, and a gash on her forehead had bled freely. The woman's eyelids fluttered at his touch. Suddenly, she gasped and tried to scramble away, her movements wild with fear and pain. "Easy," Nathan said, keeping his voice low and calm. "I'm a doctor. I'm here to help." She spat words at him in Apache, her dark eyes filled with terror and defiance, even as pain contorted her features. She reached for a stone, her fingers closing around it weakly. Nathan raised his hands, palms out. "I'm not going to hurt you, but that leg needs setting, or you'll lose it." She stared at him, chest heaving with each labored breath, the stone still clutched in her hand. Understanding flickered in her eyes, but suspicion remained. "Adai," she whispered, the Apache word for medicine. Nathan nodded slowly. "Adai," he repeated, the word clumsy on his tongue. He pointed to his bag, then to her leg. "May I?" After a long moment, she lowered the stone, her arm falling limply to her side. Taking this as permission, Nathan opened his bag and began examining her injuries more thoroughly. The break was bad, but not beyond his skills. The greater concern was infection. The wound was dirty, and she already showed signs of fever. He needed to get her back to his cabin quickly. I'm going to carry you to my home, he explained, though he wasn't sure how much she understood. It's not far. When he slid his arms beneath her, she tensed but didn't resist. Her body felt light, too light, as if she hadn't eaten properly in days. As he lifted her, something slipped from beneath her dress. A silver medallion on a leather cord, glinting in the fading light. Something about it caught Nathan's attention, but the woman quickly clutched it in her fist, hiding it from view. The journey back to the cabin seemed longer with his burden. By the time they arrived, darkness had fallen completely, and the woman's fever had worsened. She drifted in and out of consciousness, occasionally murmuring in Apache. Inside, Nathan laid her on his examining table, lighting several lamps to illuminate his work. He cut away the leg of her buckskin dress, revealing the broken bone and the angry red skin around it. He would need to set it immediately. From a cabinet, he retrieved a bottle of chloroform and a cloth. This will help with the pain, he explained, holding it near her face. She turned away, eyes wide with fear. Hadin, she said sharply. No. Nathan hesitated, then nodded. All right, but this will hurt. He worked swiftly, cleaning the wound first, then aligning the bone with a quick, practiced movement. The woman's body arched in agony, a strangled cry escaping her lips. But she didn't fight him. Sweat beaded on her forehead as he splinted and wrapped the leg. When he finished with the leg, he tended to her other injuries, the gash on her forehead, the various cuts and bruises. Throughout it all, she watched him with wary eyes, never fully relaxing. You're safe here, he said as he worked, his voice soft. No one will harm you under my roof. Finally, he helped her to his bed, propping her leg up on a pillow and covering her with a blanket. He offered her water, which she drank greedily, and then a small amount of laudanum for the pain, which she refused with a shake of her head. Nathan pulled a chair next to the bed, settling in to monitor her through the night. As he did, something slipped from beneath the pillow, a faded photograph. The woman caught a glimpse of it before Nathan could retrieve it, a young Apache woman standing beside a white man in a dusty street. Nathan quickly tucked the photograph away, but not before an unreadable emotion crossed his face. The woman's eyes followed his movements, a new wariness entering her expression. Rest, he said, retreating to his chair. We'll talk in the morning. Through the night, Nathan tended to her fever, applying cool compresses to her forehead and offering water when she woke. In her delirium, she sometimes called out names he didn't recognize or whispered about fire and death. Once, she clutched at his wrist with surprising strength, looking at him with sudden clarity. Soul healer, she murmured, before slipping back into fevered dreams. The words sent an unexpected chill down Nathan's spine. It had been years since anyone had called him that. For 3 days, Adia drifted between consciousness and fever dreams. Nathan stayed close, changing her bandages, checking her splint, coaxing broth between her lips when she was lucid enough to swallow. On the morning of the 4th day, her fever finally broke. Nathan was at his desk reviewing a medical journal when he heard the bed creak. He looked up to see the woman attempting to sit up, her face tight with pain but her eyes clear for the first time since he'd found her. Good morning, he said quietly, setting aside his book. How are you feeling? She stared at him for a long moment before answering. Water, she said in English, her voice rough from disuse. Nathan poured a cup from the pitcher beside the bed and helped her drink. When she finished, she studied his face with intense scrutiny. You are doctor, she said, her English halting but understandable. Yes, my name is Nathan Reed. How long I sleep? Almost 4 days. Your fever was high. She glanced around the cabin, taking in her surroundings, the shelves of medical supplies, the books, the sparse furnishings. Her eyes lingered on the gun belt hanging by the door. Dr. Carey's gun? A faint smile touched Nathan's lips. This is still wild country. A man needs protection. She nodded slowly, understanding in her eyes. After another moment, she said, I am Adia, daughter of Chief Broken Arrow. It's good to meet you, Adia, Nathan replied, though I wish the circumstances were better. He checked her splint, pleased to see the swelling had decreased. The bone was setting well. As he worked, he felt her watching his every move, assessing him. You know Apache words, she said suddenly. How? Nathan's hand stilled momentarily. I've spent time among your people, years ago. As doctor? Yes, he said, though something in his tone suggested there was more to the story. Adia seemed to sense his reticence. She changed the subject. My leg, will it heal? With time and care, yes, but you'll need to stay off it for several weeks. Frustration crossed her face. I cannot stay. Must go north. North? Nathan raised an eyebrow. There's not much north of here except wilderness until you reach the Colorado territory. I must find someone important. Before Nathan could inquire further, a cry of pain escaped her as she shifted position. He immediately checked her leg, concerned she might have disturbed the setting. While doing so, he noticed the silver medallion again, now hanging openly around her neck. In the daylight, he could see the intricate Apache symbols etched into its surface. His recognition must have shown on his face because Adia quickly tucked the medallion back into her dress. That's an unusual piece, Nathan said casually, returning to his examination of her leg. Family heirloom? It belongs to my people, she replied simply, clearly unwilling to elaborate. Shomeron. Nathan didn't press. Well, wherever you're headed, it will have to wait. That leg needs at least 6 weeks before you can put weight on it. Adia frowned but didn't argue. They both knew she had little choice. The next few days established a routine. Nathan tended to his usual chores around the ranch, but checked on Adia regularly. He helped her move to a chair by the window during the day, brought her meals, and changed her bandages. For her part, Adia remained watchful but gradually relaxed her guard enough to accept his help. As her strength returned, she began asking questions about his medical supplies and techniques. Nathan answered patiently, demonstrating how he mixed certain medicines or explaining the purpose of different instruments. Adia proved a quick study, revealing her own knowledge of herbal remedies used by the Apache. This, she said one afternoon, pointing to a jar of dried leaves on a shelf, we use for fever, but you prepare differently. Willow bark, Nathan nodded. I boil it to make a tincture. How do you use it? Chew fresh bark, or make tea with honey. This exchange of knowledge became a bridge between them, professional respect slowly building despite the cultural divide. Still, Nathan sensed Adia was holding back, watching him when she thought he wasn't looking, as if trying to solve a puzzle. One evening, as Nathan stoked the fire, he noticed Adia gazing at the photograph she'd seen days earlier. He'd left it on the shelf, perhaps subconsciously inviting the question she now asked. Who is woman in picture? Nathan paused, poker in hand. For a moment, he considered deflecting the question as he had before. Instead, he said, someone I knew a long time ago. Apache woman. Yes. She was important to you. It wasn't a question, but Nathan answered anyway. She was. He expected Adia to press further, but she merely nodded, turning her attention back to the fire. Something in her expression suggested she'd confirmed a suspicion. That night, Nathan couldn't sleep. He sat on the porch, watching the stars and listening to the distant howl of coyotes. The photograph weighed on his mind, along with memories he'd spent years trying to forget. His fingers found the old scar along his jawline, tracing its familiar path. Inside, Adia too lay awake, the medallion clutched in her hand, its metal warm from her touch. She whispered a prayer to her ancestors, asking for guidance, for strength, for clarity. Outside her window, an owl called 3 times, an omen her people considered significant, a sign that what was hidden would soon be revealed. A week passed. Adia's recovery continued steadily, and the initial wariness between her and Nathan gave way to a cautious rapport. She could now move around the cabin with the aid of crutches Nathan had fashioned, though the effort clearly pained her. One evening, Nathan returned from tending the livestock to find Adia by the window, her face turned to catch the last rays of the setting sun. Her eyes were closed, lips moving in silent prayer. The medallion hung openly around her neck now, glinting in the golden light. Nathan paused in the doorway, struck by the scene. Something about her posture, proud yet vulnerable, reminded him painfully of another time, another woman. He must have made a sound, for Adia's eyes opened, finding his across the room. You know about my medallion, she said without preamble. I see it in your eyes when you look at it. Nathan set down the bucket of milk he carried and closed the door behind him. What makes you think that? A man who speaks Apache words does not mistake this symbol. She touched the medallion. It is sacred to my people. Few white men have seen it. The moment stretched between them, taut with unspoken questions. Finally, Nathan sighed. I've seen its like before, he admitted. Many years ago. Adia studied him intently. You are the one they call Soul Healer, are you not? The name hung in the air like smoke. Nathan's expression hardened slightly, a mask slipping into place. I don't know what you're talking about, he said, turning away to strain the milk into a crock. My people speak of a white man who came to them during the sickness, a healer who saved many lives when others would not help. They say that was a long time ago. Nathan cut her off, his back still turned. Another life. Adia fell silent, but her eyes never left him. After a moment, she said quietly, some paths follow us, no matter how far we run. Before Nathan could respond, both of them tensed at a new sound, hoofbeats approaching the ranch. Nathan moved swiftly to the window, peering out at the trail leading to his property. 3 riders were coming, still distant, but moving purposefully toward the cabin. Stay inside, he told Adia, reaching for his gun belt, and stay out of sight. He stepped onto the porch, buckling the belt around his waist with the ease of long practice. The familiar weight of the Colt settled against his hip, an old friend he'd hoped never to call upon again. The riders drew closer, 3 men on horseback, dust rising behind them in the evening light. The lead rider was a heavy-set man with a silver star pinned to his vest. Sheriff James Miller from the town of Copper Ridge, flanked by 2 deputies. Nathan relaxed slightly but didn't move his hand far from his weapon. His relationship with the law had always been complicated. Evening, Sheriff, he called as the men reined in before his porch. What brings you out this way? Sheriff Miller dismounted with a grunt, adjusting his hat against the setting sun. He was a stocky man in his 50s, with a thick mustache and sharp brown eyes that missed little. Reed, he nodded. Been a while since you came to town. Not much cause to, Nathan replied evenly. Miller studied the ranch, his gaze lingering on the cabin windows. Heard there was trouble down south. Apache village burned to the ground. Nathan's expression remained neutral. That's so? The sheriff shifted his weight. Army's looking into it. Strange thing, though. Found tracks heading this direction. His eyes met Nathan's. You seen any Indians around these parts lately? Inside the cabin, Adia had moved silently to the trap door Nathan had shown her days before, an emergency shelter beneath the floorboards. Remnant of the cabin's original owner, who'd feared Apache raids. The irony wasn't lost on her as she lowered herself carefully into the cramped space, pulling the door closed above her. Can't say that I have, Nathan answered, his voice carrying easily through the cabin walls. Been busy with the ranch. Don't get many visitors out this way. Sheriff Miller nodded slowly, clearly weighing Nathan's words. Thing is, Reed, there's more to it. Seems there was a woman, Chief's daughter. Word is she took something valuable when she fled. Is that right? Army's mighty interested in finding her. Miller took a step closer, lowering his voice. And I know you, Reed. I knew you before you became a doctor. If you're harboring a fugitive... Nathan's eyes hardened. That was a long time ago, Sheriff. I'm just a ranch doctor now. Miller held his gaze for a long moment, then reached into his vest pocket and produced a folded paper. He handed it to Nathan. Official notice. Apache woman, early 20s, likely injured. Wanted for questioning in connection with the deaths of several soldiers. Nathan opened the paper. A crude sketch showed a young Apache woman with a medallion around her neck. The resemblance to Adia was unmistakable. If you see anything, you send word, Miller said, already turning back to his horse. What's the Army's interest in one Apache woman? Nathan asked, folding the paper. Miller paused. Above my pay grade, but I'd stay clear of it if I were you, Reed. I know you've been sympathetic in the past. The sheriff mounted his horse, tipping his hat. Good evening, Doctor. Nathan watched them ride away, the paper heavy in his hand. Inside the cabin, he slid back the bolt on the door and moved to the center of the room. They're gone, he called softly. The trap door lifted and Adia emerged, her face tight with pain from the awkward climb. She saw the paper in Nathan's hand. They hunt me, she said simply. Nathan handed her the notice. Seems so. Want to tell me why? Adia took the paper, her fingers tracing the crude image of the medallion. Her expression grew distant, as if making a difficult decision. Finally, she looked up at Nathan, her dark eyes resolute. I will tell you truth, she said. But first, you must tell me yours. Nathan stared at Adia for a long moment, his blue eyes unreadable in the dim cabin light. Outside, dusk had given way to night, and a light rain began to patter against the roof. "What truth are you looking for?" he asked finally, his voice low. Adia straightened as much as her injured leg allowed. "Who you were before you became doctor. Why Sheriff knows you by another name. Why you recognize this." She touched the medallion at her throat. A bitter smile touched Nathan's lips. "Those are dangerous questions, Adia." "I am in danger already," she replied evenly. "Better to know if I am in danger from you also." Nathan turned away, moving to the small cabinet where he kept his whiskey. He poured a measure into a glass, but didn't drink immediately. "I could lie," he said, staring into the amber liquid. "Tell you something that would make you feel safe. Or I could tell you the truth, which might make you wish you'd never come here." "I would know the difference," Adia said. "My people say eyes cannot hide what heart knows." Nathan nodded slowly. "Fair enough." He took a breath, then turned to face her. "Before I was a doctor, I was known by another name, Cold-Blooded Reed." Adia's eyes widened slightly, recognition flickering in their depths. The name was infamous even among her people, a white man whose gun had claimed dozens of lives, whose speed was said to be supernatural, whose aim never faltered. "You were killer," she said softly. "I was a lot of things," Nathan replied. "Scout for the army, bounty hunter, hired gun." He took a sip of whiskey. "I killed men for money, for the government, sometimes for what I thought was justice. I was good at it, too good. And now you heal instead of kill. Life has a sense of irony, doesn't it?" His smile didn't reach his eyes. "During the war, I learned field medicine out of necessity. Afterward, I decided to study it properly. Spent 3 years with a doctor in St. Louis." He set down his glass. "I wanted to save as many lives as I'd taken, balance the scales if such a thing is possible." Adia considered this, her expression thoughtful rather than fearful. "Why did you change?" Something dark passed behind Nathan's eyes. "That's a longer story, one I'm not ready to tell." He straightened. "Now it's your turn. Why are soldiers hunting you? What's so important about that medallion?" Adia's hand went protectively to the silver disc. Rain drummed steadily on the roof now, creating a curtain of sound around them. "My village was attacked," she began, her voice steady despite the pain in her eyes. "Men came in night, not soldiers in uniform, men with no honor. They killed many, burned our homes. My father," her voice caught briefly, "my father gave me this and told me to find the soul healer." "Why Metea?" "Medallion is key to sacred place, a valley where some of my people hide. It also leads to treasure, gold from Spanish time, hidden by my ancestors." Her eyes held his. "Men who attacked us want gold, want medallion. And your father sent you to me specifically? How did he know where to find me?" Adia reached beneath her dress and pulled out a folded paper, yellowed with age. She handed it to Nathan. "He gave me this." Nathan unfolded the paper carefully. It was a map, crudely drawn but showing the river, the mountains, and a mark where his cabin stood. In one corner was written a single word, "Reed." "My father said my mother knew you," Adia continued. "Said you once saved our people from sickness." Nathan stared at the map, memories washing over him. "Raven hair," he murmured. "My mother's name," Adia confirmed, watching his face closely. Nathan sat heavily in a chair, the map trembling slightly in his hands. "She never told me she had a daughter." "You knew my mother well?" "I treated your people during a smallpox outbreak 15 years ago. Your mother was the one who convinced the chief to trust me." Nathan's voice softened. "We became close." Understanding dawned in Adia's eyes. "The photograph." Nathan nodded. "Taken in a town called Silver Creek, just before I left." "Why did you leave?" "The army ordered all Apache back to the reservation. I protested. Tried to convince them your people needed more time to recover from the sickness." His jaw tightened. "They didn't listen. I was given a choice, follow orders or face charges of interfering with military operations." "So you left," Adia said, no judgment in her tone. "I left," Nathan agreed. "One of many cowardly acts I've come to regret." A silence fell between them, broken only by the sound of rain and the occasional pop from the fireplace. Adia studied Nathan's face, seeing now the lines of guilt and regret etched deeply around his eyes and mouth. "The man who attacked my village," she said finally. "His name is Major Curtis Harland." Nathan's head snapped up. "Harland? You know this man?" "I know him." Nathan's voice had gone cold. "We served together during the war. He was ruthless even then. He leads men who killed my people." Adia's eyes flashed with anger. "A woman rides with him, mixed blood like me, but with red in her hair." She called him uncle. "Bianca," Nathan whispered, more to himself than to Adia, another ghost from his past emerging from the shadows. "You know this woman also?" Adia asked, surprise evident in her voice. Nathan stood abruptly, moving to the window. He stared out into the rainy darkness, his reflection ghostly in the glass. Bianca Reed. Her father was a trader who married an Apache woman. When they died, Curtis Harland raised her. He turned back to Adia. "And yes, I knew her. Once." "Reed," Adia repeated. "She has your name." "No relation," Nathan said quickly. Too quickly. Adia's eyes narrowed. "You do not speak truth now." Nathan held her gaze for a moment, then looked away. "No, I suppose I don't." He sighed heavily. "Bianca's mother was my sister. After she died, I tried to care for Bianca, but my lifestyle wasn't suitable for raising a child. Harland offered to take her in. He was married then, seemed stable." His voice hardened. It was another mistake in a long list of them. Outside, the rain intensified, sheets of water cascading from the roof. Thunder rolled across the distant mountains, a low growl of warning. "These people hunt me," Adia said on, her voice cutting through the storm's noise. "They will come here." "Yes," Nathan agreed, "they will." "What will you do when they come?" Nathan's hand moved unconsciously to his hip, where the Colt rested in its holster. "That depends." "On what?" His blue eyes met hers, something cold and resolute settling in them, a glimpse of the man he once was. "On whether you want my help." Adia straightened, dignity in every line of her body despite her injury. "My father believed you would help. He called you Soul Healer." "Why that name?" Nathan asked. "I've heard it before from your people, but never understood its meaning." "My people believe every person has many souls. The breath soul, the shadow soul, the dream soul, the name soul. When you saved us from sickness, elders said you healed more than bodies. You healed our name soul, our future." She touched the medallion again. "This is why my father sent me to you. Not just to hide medallion, but because legend says it must be carried by one who can bridge two worlds." Nathan absorbed her words, feeling their weight. "I'm no legend, Adia. Just a man with a bloody past trying to make amends." "Perhaps that is what legend requires," she replied simply. The thunder crashed again, closer now. Nathan moved to check that the windows were secured against the worsening storm. As he did, he made his decision. "If Harlan wants you, he'll have to come through me," he said, his back to Adia. "But you should know what that means. If I help you, if I take up arms again." He turned to face her. "The man I've been trying to leave behind will return. And once he does, I'm not sure I can put him away again." Adia met his gaze steadily. "Sometimes we must become what we fear to protect what we love." Nathan nodded, a weight settling on his shoulders even as another lifted from his heart. Decision made, he moved with new purpose, checking his gun, gathering supplies. "First light will move you to the root cellar beneath the barn," he said. "It's better hidden, has a tunnel that leads to the creek if you need to escape." He began pulling medical supplies from his shelves. "We'll need to prepare for your leg. The splint will have to be reinforced." As Nathan worked, transforming from quiet doctor back into the strategist and fighter he'd once been, Adia watched him with new understanding. The storm raged outside, a fitting backdrop to the dangerous path they were now committed to walking together. Neither of them noticed the owl perched in the tree outside the window, its yellow eyes reflecting the cabin's lamplight. It called once, a long, mournful note lost in the thunder, then spread its wings and vanished into the stormy night. The storm passed overnight, leaving behind a washed, clean world gleaming under a half-moon. Nathan stood on the porch, scanning the darkness, the old Colt heavy on his hip. Inside the cabin, Adia slept fitfully, her fever returning after the day's exertions. The silence of the night was complete. No coyotes called, no owls hunted. Even the crickets had fallen quiet. It was the kind of silence that preceded danger, a warning Nathan had learned to heed in his former life. He leaned against the porch post, memories rising unbidden in the stillness. 15 years since he'd visited the Apache village. 15 years since he'd held Ravenhair's hand in his, promising to return when he could. Broken promises littered his past like spent bullet casings. The creak of the cabin door made him turn. Adia stood in the doorway, leaning heavily on her crutch, her face pale in the moonlight. "You should be resting," Nathan said, moving to help her. Adia shook her head. "Bad dreams. Death follows me even in sleep." Nathan understood all too well. He helped her to the bench against the cabin wall where she could sit with her injured leg extended. For a time, they simply shared the silence, two watchful souls taking measure of the night. "Tell me of your time with my people," Adia said finally. Nathan's gaze remained on the distant horizon. "It was summer 1863. I was scouting for the army then, tracking a band of raiders. Found your village instead, ravaged by smallpox." His voice softened. "Many were already dead, others dying. The army wanted nothing to do with it, afraid of the disease, of course, but also indifferent to Apache suffering. But you stayed." "I'd had the pox as a child. Wasn't afraid of catching it." He shrugged. "I knew some medicine, enough to help. Your mother was caring for the sick when I arrived. She didn't trust me at first, had no reason to, but she was desperate." Adia listened intently, hungry for details of the mother she'd lost too young. "How did you gain her trust?" A faint smile touched Nathan's lips. "I saved a child who was near death, her sister's son. After that, she convinced your father, the chief, to let me help. I stayed for 3 months and became close to my mother." It wasn't a question, but Nathan answered anyway. Yes, she was extraordinary, strong, intelligent, with a dignity that no hardship could break. He glanced at Adia. "You have her eyes, same fire in them." "She died when I was 12, Adia said softly. "The coughing sickness." "I'm sorry." The words felt inadequate. "She deserved better than what this world gave her. She spoke of you sometimes, called you the white man with the healing hands, said you were different." Adia studied his profile in the moonlight. "And now I understand why she watched the North Trail in spring for many years." Nathan closed his eyes briefly, pain etching deeper lines in his weathered face. Another debt he could never repay. When he opened them again, determination had replaced regret. "You asked earlier about why I changed," he said. "Why I put down the gun and took up medicine." He rolled up his sleeve, revealing a jagged scar that ran from elbow to wrist. 5 years after I left your people, I was hired to track down an Apache warrior accused of killing settlers. Found him with his family, hiding in the mountains." "You killed him?" Adia asked, her voice neutral. "No, I watched him first. Saw him hunting to feed his children, teaching his son to fish. Saw nothing of the cold-blooded killer I'd been told about." Nathan traced the scar absently. "When I confronted him, he recognized me. Said your mother had told stories of the soul healer. He asked if I'd come to heal or to kill." "What did you answer?" "I didn't get the chance. Military patrol found us, opened fire without warning. His wife and son were killed instantly." Nathan's voice had gone flat, emotionless. "He thought I'd led them there. Attacked me with a knife. We fought. I killed him, but not before he opened my arm to the bone." Adia waited silently for him to continue. "While I lay there bleeding, watching the life fade from his eyes, something broke in me. All those years of violence, of death, for what? Money? Some twisted idea of justice?" Nathan shook his head. "I walked away from everything that day. Found a doctor who'd teach me more than field medicine. Swore I'd never take another life. Until now," Adia observed quietly. "Until now," Nathan agreed. The moon slipped behind a cloud, casting the ranch in deeper shadow. In that moment of darkness, Adia reached out and placed her hand over Nathan's, a gesture of understanding that needed no words. When moonlight returned, Nathan stood, helping Adia to her feet. "Dawn's not far off. We should prepare." Together they made their way back into the cabin, where Nathan stoked the fire and brewed coffee strong enough to cut through exhaustion. As the eastern sky lightened almost imperceptibly, They began preparing for the battle they both knew was coming. Harlan won't come alone, Nathan said as he checked his rifle. He'll bring men, good fighters, well armed. How many? Based on what you've told me, at least 6, maybe more. Adia's face was grim. And Bianca, do not underestimate her. She fights like Apache but thinks like white soldier. Nathan nodded. We need to move you to the root cellar before full light. It's our best option. As he gathered supplies, water, bandages, extra ammunition, Nathan paused by an old trunk shoved beneath his bed. After a moment's hesitation, he pulled it out and unlocked it with a key kept around his neck. Inside lay the remnants of his former life, a second Colt revolver, a Bowie knife with a worn handle, a flat-brimmed hat creased by years of sun and rain. Beneath these, wrapped in oilcloth, was a long-barreled rifle with custom sights, a shooter's weapon designed for distance and accuracy. Nathan unwrapped it reverently, checking the action with practiced hands. Old friend, he murmured, never thought I'd need you again. Adia watched from her chair, understanding the significance of the moment. Your spirit gun, she said. Nathan glanced up surprised. My people believe a warrior's weapons carry part of his spirit, she explained. To take them up again is to reclaim that spirit. Let's hope my spirit remembers how to fight, Nathan replied grimly. The first rays of dawn were breaking over the eastern mountains when they made their way to the barn, Nathan supporting Adia as she hobbled alongside him. The root cellar was accessed through a trapdoor in the barn floor, concealed beneath hay bales and old sacking. Nathan had prepared it the night before, stocking it with water, food, and blankets. The tunnel starts behind the wine barrel, he explained as he helped her down the ladder. It's narrow but navigable. Leads to an opening near the creek, hidden by brush. If things go badly, don't wait for me. Head north following the creek. There's a settlement called Harper's Mill, about 15 miles upstream. Ask for Pastor Williams. He'll help you. Adia settled on the pallet he'd prepared, her dark eyes troubled. You expect to die today. I expect to fight, Nathan corrected. Dying is always a possibility when bullets start flying. I should be with you. 2 fighting better than 1. With that leg, you'd be a liability, not an asset. His tone softened. Besides, if they get past me, someone needs to ensure the medallion stays out of Harlan's hands. Adia touched the silver disc at her throat. If you die because of this, if I die, it will be because of my own choices, not because of you or that medallion. Nathan checked his pocket watch. I need to prepare. Stay quiet. Stay hidden. As he turned to leave, Adia caught his wrist. Wait. She removed the medallion from around her neck and pressed it into his palm. Keep this with you. It protects the bearer. I don't believe in such things, Nathan said, trying to hand it back. Belief not required for truth to be truth, she replied with quiet certainty. Take it. Return it to me when battle is won. After a moment's hesitation, Nathan slipped the medallion into his shirt pocket. Get some rest. It could be a long day. Outside, he carefully concealed the entrance to the root cellar, then set about preparing his defenses. He positioned ammunition at strategic points around the property, established firing lines with clear sight paths to the approach road, and readied several surprises for unwelcome visitors. By mid-morning, the sun beat down from a cloudless sky, all traces of the previous night's storm erased except for mud puddles in the low spots of the road. Nathan sat on the porch, rifle across his knees, hat pulled low against the glare. To all appearances, he was simply a rancher taking a moment's rest. Only the tension in his shoulders and the vigilant sweep of his eyes revealed his true purpose. The riders appeared just before noon, shimmering like mirages in the heat rising from the valley floor. Nathan counted 7 men plus 1 woman riding slightly apart from the group. Even at a distance, he recognized the broad-shouldered figure at the lead. Major Curtis Harlan had come calling at last. Nathan remained seated as the riders approached, his posture deliberately casual, the rifle across his knees the only visible weapon. Inside, however, his mind calculated distances, angles, the speed with which he could raise the rifle if needed. Old instincts, never truly forgotten, surged back with unsettling ease. The riders reined in 50 yards from the cabin, spreading out in a loose semicircle, a tactical approach that confirmed these weren't merely ranch hands or travelers. They were men accustomed to violence. Major Curtis Harlan nudged his horse forward a few paces, his silver-streaked beard catching the sunlight. Time had added weight to his frame and lines to his face, but his cold gray eyes remained unchanged. Predator's eyes, assessing and merciless. "Reed," he called. "Been a long time." Nathan stood slowly, rifle held non-threateningly at his side. "Not long enough, Curtis." Harlan smiled without warmth. "Is that any way to greet an old comrade? We shared a campfire or two, as I recall." "State your business or move on," Nathan replied evenly. "I've got work to do." Harlan gestured to his companions. "My associates and I are tracking a fugitive. Apache woman injured. Stole something valuable from a military outpost. Trail leads this way." His gaze sharpened. "You seen anyone fitting that description?" "No Indians around here," Nathan said. "Not for years." "Mind if we look around? Won't take but a minute." "Yes, I mind." Nathan's grip on his rifle tightened imperceptibly. "This is private property." A tense silence followed, broken only by the soft nickering of horses and the distant call of a hawk. Nathan's gaze shifted briefly to the woman rider, who had remained slightly apart from the others. Bianca Reed had grown from the gangly girl he remembered into a striking woman, her mixed heritage evident in her features. She watched him with an unreadable expression, her copper-toned skin contrasting with the auburn hair pulled back beneath her hat. Harlan broke the silence with a chuckle that never reached his eyes. "Still the same stubborn bastard, I see. Always did have more principles than sense." He leaned forward in his saddle. "Let me be plain, Reed. That Apache bitch killed 3 of my men. The item she stole belongs to the United States government. Harboring her would make you an accessory to murder and theft of military property." "Sounds serious," Nathan commented dryly. "Strange that you're not wearing a uniform if you're here on official business." One of Harlan's men, a scar-faced individual with a nervous trigger finger, spat into the dust. "Told you he'd be difficult, Major." "Easy, Jackson," Harlan cautioned. To Nathan, he said, "My commission's been temporarily suspended. Bureaucratic nonsense. The mission, however, continues under my direction." His smile turned predatory. "Now, about that search." "You've got no authority here," Nathan replied. "No badge, no warrant, no uniform. Just a bunch of armed men trespassing on private land. Where I come from, that's cause for concern." "Where you come from?" Harlan laughed. "We come from the same place, Reed. Difference is, I never pretended to be something I'm not." His voice hardened. "The woman, Reed, we know she's here. Bianca tracked her to your creek." At the mention of her name, Bianca urged her horse forward, coming to rest beside Harlan Dahl. "Uncle," she said softly, though her voice carried to the porch, "perhaps a more diplomatic approach." She turned to Nathan, her expression softening. "Dr. Reed," she greeted him, emphasizing his title. "It's been many years. I was saddened to hear about Eleanor and Grace. A terrible tragedy." Nathan's jaw tightened at the mention of his wife and daughter. "What do you want, Bianca?" "Only to talk," she replied, dismounting gracefully. "May I approach?" After a tense moment, Nathan nodded once. Bianca walked forward, stopping at the foot of the porch steps. Up close, the resemblance to her mother, Nathan's sister, was more pronounced. The same high cheekbones, the same slight tilt to her eyes. But where his sister's gaze had been kind, Bianca's held a calculating edge that reminded him more of Harlan. "The woman we're seeking is injured," Bianca said, her voice pitched low as if sharing a confidence. "A broken leg, possibly other wounds. She needs proper medical attention, which you're uniquely qualified to provide. If I find someone matching that description, I'll be sure to treat them," Nathan replied neutrally. Bianca smiled. "Always the healer. It's admirable." She glanced back at Harlan and his men before continuing. "But we both know she's already here. I found blood on the rocks by the creek. Fresh blood, and a piece of buckskin fringe caught on a branch." She reached into her pocket and produced a small leather pouch. "I also found this." Nathan recognized it immediately, a medicine bag of the type carried by many Apache. Adia must have lost it when she fell from her horse. "What's your interest in this, Bianca?" he asked, ignoring the pouch. "Last I heard you were back east, studying at some ladies' academy." "People change, Nathan. You of all people should understand that." She tucked the pouch away. "My interest is simple, the medallion. It belongs to my mother's people too. Your mother was Chiricahua, different tribe altogether. All Apache are connected, Bianca countered smoothly. The medallion is part of our shared heritage. She lowered her voice further. Help us, and I promise no harm will come to the girl. All we want is what she carries. Nathan studied her face, searching for any trace of the child he'd once known. And what does Harlan want with an Apache artifact? Something flickered in Bianca's eyes. That's between him and the government. The same government that suspended his commission? Nathan shook his head. You're lying, Bianca. Not sure if it's to me, to yourself, or both. Anger flashed across her features, quickly controlled. You always were too perceptive for your own good. She stepped back. We'll be making camp by your creek tonight. Think about my offer. Help us willingly, and things can remain civilized. She turned and walked back to her horse, the implied threat hanging in the air between them. As she mounted, Harlan urged his horse forward. Sundown, Reed, he called. That's how long you have to reconsider. After that, we do things the hard way. The group wheeled their horses around, riding toward the creek that bordered Nathan's property. Only Bianca lingered, her gaze meeting Nathan's one last time before she turned to follow the others. Nathan watched them go, his mind already calculating his next move. He counted 8 riders total, Harlan, Bianca, and 6 men, all armed and dangerous. The odds weren't good, but he'd faced worse in his time. He retreated inside the cabin, closing the door behind him. Moving quickly, he gathered additional ammunition, checked his weapons once more, and packed a small bag with essentials: bandages, laudanum for Adia's pain, jerky, and hardtack. If things went badly, they might need to flee quickly. As he worked, his thoughts turned to Bianca. There was something in her manner, in the way she'd mentioned Eleanor and Grace, that raised the hairs on the back of his neck. It wasn't just knowledge of their deaths, that was common enough knowledge, but something more personal, almost intimate. A suspicion began to form in his mind, one so dark he hesitated to examine it directly. Instead, he focused on preparations, on the coming confrontation. There would be time for questions later, assuming they survived the night. Afternoon stretched toward evening, the sun sinking lower in the western sky. Nathan moved between defensive positions, making final adjustments to his preparations. From the ridgeline above the creek, he could see Harlan's camp, 6 tents arranged in a circle, a fire already burning despite the lingering heat of the day. The men moved about with military precision, setting watches, tending horses. This was no hastily assembled posse, but a well-organized unit. Nathan was making his way back to the cabin when a sound stopped him. The soft scrape of boot leather against stone, coming from behind the barn. He melted into the shadows, Colt drawn silently from its holster, and worked his way toward the sound. A figure moved in the deepening gloom, too small to be one of Harlan's men. Nathan circled wide, coming up behind the intruder. In one smooth motion, he pressed the barrel of his gun against the back of the figure's head. "Don't move," he whispered. The intruder froze, hands rising slowly. "I come alone," a young male voice replied in accented English. "Not with soldiers." Nathan kept the gun in place. "Turn around," slowly. The figure complied, revealing a young Apache man, no more than 22, dressed in a mixture of traditional clothing and cast-off white man's garments. His black hair was cut shorter than was customary, and a jagged scar ran along his jawline. "Who are you?" Nathan demanded. "Dakota," the young man replied, his dark eyes fearless despite the gun pointed at his face. "Son of Running Fox, brother of White Deer Clan. I seek Adia, daughter of Chief Broken Arrow." Nathan didn't lower his weapon. "How did you find this place?" "Followed soldiers," Dakota answered simply. "Watched them since they burned our village. When they came here, I knew Adia must be near." His eyes narrowed. "Where is she? Is she alive?" "Why should I trust you?" Dakota slowly reached into his shirt, withdrawing a small object. "Adia will know this." It was a carved wooden amulet, a twin to one Nathan had seen Adia wearing alongside the medallion, a clan symbol. After a moment's consideration, Nathan lowered his gun. "Come with me." He led Dakota to the barn, watching the young man carefully for any sign of treachery. Inside, with the doors secured behind them, Nathan moved to the hidden trap door of the root cellar. Adia, he called softly, lifting the door. You have a visitor. Adia's face appeared at the opening, suspicious at first, then breaking into surprise and relief. Dakota! Shiaz! She reached up, grasping the young man's hand as he knelt by the opening. They spoke rapidly in Apache, their words too quick for Nathan to follow with his limited knowledge of the language. The emotional reunion told him all he needed to know, however. Dakota was indeed a friend, perhaps more than a friend based on the way Adia clutched his hand. After a moment, Adia switched to English, presumably for Nathan's benefit. Dakota says others survived the attack, hiding in mountains north of here. How many? Nathan asked. 17, Dakota answered. Mostly women, children, elders. Few warriors remain. His expression darkened. White soldiers hunt them like animals. Soon they will find hiding place. Not soldiers, Adia corrected. Harlan and his men are not true military. They wear blue coats, carry army guns, Dakota insisted. Nathan interjected. Harlan's commission has been suspended. He's operating outside the law now. This changes nothing for my people, Dakota said bitterly. Blue coat or not, he kills Apache just the same. Adia pulled herself up from the cellar, wincing as her splinted leg dragged against the ladder. Once seated on a hay bale, she explained to Dakota about the medallion and why Harlan wanted it. The valley it leads to has been sanctuary for our people for generations, she said. A hidden place where even the army has not found us. But it is more than that. Spanish gold lies buried there from the time of our ancestors' great victory against the conquistadors. Gold, Dakota spat the word like a curse. Always it is gold that makes white men crazy. Not all white men, Adia said, glancing at Nathan. Dakota followed her gaze, his expression skeptical. This one helps you? He has treated my wounds, given me shelter, and now he prepares to fight Harlan. The young Apache warrior studied Nathan with new interest. You are the one they call soul healer. Nathan sighed, so I'm told. My grandfather spoke of you, said you saved many when the spotted sickness came. Dakota's tone remained neutral, neither friendly nor hostile. He also said you left when army came, abandoned our people to the soldiers. I did, Nathan acknowledged, meeting the young man's gaze directly. It's not something I'm proud of. Dakota seemed to consider this. A man who admits weakness may have strength after all. He turned back to Adia. I came to take you to others. Can you ride? Not yet, she admitted. My leg is healing, but not strong enough. Then I will stay and fight with White Healer, Dakota declared. 2 guns better than 1. Nathan was about to protest when a thought occurred to him. You said you followed Harlan's group. How many are there exactly? 8, Dakota confirmed. Harlan, the mixed-blood woman, and 6 men, all well-armed. Any sign they're expecting reinforcements? Dakota shook his head. They travel light, fast, no supply wagons, no extra horses. Nathan nodded thoughtfully. That's something at least. He checked his pocket watch. Sundown's in 2 hours. Harlan gave me until then to reconsider his offer. What will you do? Adia asked. Spring a few surprises, Nathan replied grimly. Dakota, can you use a rifle? The young warrior smiled for the first time. Better than most white men. Good, we'll need every advantage. Nathan began outlining his plan, drawing a rough map of the property in the dust of the barn floor. Harlan's too smart for a frontal assault. He'll split his forces, try to flank us from multiple directions. As they discussed strategy, Adia suddenly gasped, clutching at the empty space where the medallion had hung. The medallion, I gave it to you. Where is it? Nathan patted his shirt pocket. Right here. Safe. Dia's relief was palpable. Do not lose it. Without a medallion, our people have no future. What exactly does this medallion do? Nathan asked. Besides lead to this hidden valley? Adia and Dakota exchanged glances, some unspoken communication passing between them. Finally, Adia said, It is key to sacred cave and valley. Inside cave is not just gold, but tu Bahia Dicis, our people's ancient wisdom, recorded on stone tablets. Prophecies, history no white man has seen. And the medallion unlocks this cave somehow? It shows the way, Adia confirmed. Has star map that aligns with sky only when moon is right. Without it, entrance remains hidden. Nathan absorbed this information thoughtfully. No wonder Harlan wants it badly enough to massacre a village. It is not just Medallion he wants, Dakota interjected. He hunts all who know of Valley, leaves no witnesses. The implications settled heavily in the barn's dusty air. If Dakota was right, Harlan wouldn't be satisfied merely taking the medallion. He'd eliminate anyone who might know its secrets. We need to get you both out of here, Nathan decided. Tonight, after dark. The tunnel from the root cellar. No, Adia interrupted firmly. I will not run again. Too many have died already. This isn't your fight, Nathan, Dakota added unexpectedly. But you made it yours by helping Adia. Now we stand together. Nathan studied the young warrior's determination, then Adia's equally resolute expression. There would be no convincing either of them to flee to safety. All right, he conceded, but Adia stays hidden in the cellar until it's over. With that leg, you'd be an easy target. Adia started to protest, but Dakota placed a hand on her arm. He speaks truth, Shiaz. You cannot fight with broken bone. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded reluctantly. But I will not hide if you need me. Fair enough, Nathan agreed, knowing it was the best compromise he'd get. He turned to Dakota. Let's get you acquainted with my arsenal. The two men left Adia in the barn and made their way cautiously to the cabin. Inside, Nathan opened the trunk containing his weapons, allowing Dakota to select a Winchester rifle and a Remington revolver. The young Apache handled both with obvious familiarity. Army taught us to use their weapons, he explained, noting Nathan's raised eyebrow. Thought we would become scouts, help hunt our own people. His smile was cold. They did not expect we would learn so well. As Dakota checked the rifle's action, a shadow passed over his face. The woman with Harlan, the mixed blood, she betrayed us. Bianca? Nathan asked. How? She came to our village 3 moons ago, said she was searching for her mother's people. Chief Broken Arrow welcomed her, as is our custom with those of Apache blood. Dakota's voice hardened. She learned our ways, our secrets. Then she led Harlan to us in night. Nathan's suspicion about Bianca deepened. Did she ever mention her connection to Harlan? Called him uncle, said he raised her after parents died. Dakota gave Nathan a shrewd look. But you know her too. She's my niece, Nathan admitted, my sister's daughter. I haven't seen her in 20 years. Dakota accepted this with a nod. She speaks often of fire, has dreams about it. Some say she is touched by evil spirits. Fire. The word resonated with Nathan's earlier suspicions. When did her parents die? She did not say, only that fire took them. Before Nathan could pursue this line of questioning further, a distant gunshot echoed across the property, a signal from Harlan that sundown approached, and with it, his deadline. Time to take positions, Nathan said, gathering his own weapons. Remember the plan. No heroics. We're outnumbered, so we use the terrain to our advantage. Dakota nodded grimly. May your aim be true, Soul Healer. And yours, Nathan replied, feeling the weight of the medallion in his pocket like a stone. Dusk settled over the ranch, the last rays of sunlight painting the western sky in shades of amber and crimson. Nathan crouched by the barn's rear window, rifle ready, watching the approach from the creek. Beside him, Adia prepared to descend back into the root cellar. Take this, she said, pressing something into his hand, a small leather pouch on a cord. Medicine bundle. Protection. Nathan accepted it without comment, slipping it around his neck. He wasn't superstitious, but he understood the gesture's importance to Adia. Stay hidden, he instructed. No matter what you hear, don't come out unless I call for you. Adia touched his arm, her dark eyes serious in the fading light. Be careful, Soul Healer. My people still need you. After she disappeared into the cellar, Nathan secured the trap door and concealed it once more beneath hay and old sacks. He checked his weapons one final time, then moved silently out of the barn to join Dakota, who was positioned behind a low stone wall at the edge of the corral. No movement yet, the young warrior reported, but they come soon. I feel it. Nathan nodded. He felt it too, the tightening of the air that preceded violence, like the pressure change before a thunderstorm. The sensation was disturbingly familiar, awakening muscle memories he had thought long buried. When it starts, Nathan said quietly, remember, fire only when you have a clear shot. Make each bullet count. Dakota smiled grimly. I will send each to meet their ancestors. Harlan's mine, Nathan added. If you get a shot at him, wound him if you can. I want him alive. Dakota looked surprised. Why spare the butcher? Justice, Nathan replied simply, and answers. They fell silent as true darkness descended, the stars emerging one by one in the vast desert sky. The half-moon provided just enough light to see by without revealing their positions to approaching enemies. 20 minutes passed in tense stillness. Then Dakota touched Nathan's arm, pointing. A shadow moved between trees at the creek's edge, then another, and a third. Harlan's men were advancing. Nathan had expected this, a cautious, multi-pronged approach rather than a frontal assault. He signaled to Dakota to hold position. The trap was not yet ready to spring. More shadows detached from the darkness, advancing slowly toward the cabin. Nathan counted 5 men approaching from different angles. That meant Harlan and 2 others, likely including Bianca, remained in reserve, perhaps circling to attack from behind. When the closest man reached the edge of the corral, stepping over a nearly invisible tripwire, Nathan squeezed the trigger of his rifle. The shot shattered the night's silence, followed immediately by a thunderous explosion as the dynamite charge buried in the ground detonated, sending the unfortunate man flying through the air. Chaos erupted instantly. Gunfire blazed from multiple positions as Harlan's men sought cover, returning fire blindly toward the source of the explosion. Nathan and Dakota held their positions, picking their shots carefully in the confusion. A man broke cover, running for the cabin. Dakota's rifle cracked, and the runner stumbled, clutching his leg before dragging himself behind a water trough. 3, Dakota whispered, indicating he'd spotted 3 enemies from his position. 2 here, Nathan confirmed, plus the wounded. Harlan and the others must be circling around back. As if to confirm his assessment, a shot rang out from behind the barn, the bullet splintering wood inches from Nathan's head. He rolled to a new position, returning fire toward the muzzle flash he'd glimpsed. The firefight intensified, bullets whining through the air from multiple directions. Nathan moved from cover to cover, changing position frequently to confuse the attackers. Dakota did likewise, the 2 of them creating the impression of a larger defending force. In a brief lull, Nathan heard Harlan's voice from the darkness. You're outnumbered, Reed. Surrender the girl and the medallion and you can walk away from this. Like the villagers walked away? Nathan called back. I've seen your handiwork, Curtis. That was unfortunate, but necessary, Harlan replied, his voice moving, circling to find a better position. Military necessity, you understand that. I understand you're a butcher, Nathan spat. Always were, even back in the war. A bullet kicked up dirt by Nathan's foot, forcing him to duck lower behind the rain barrel he was using as cover. The exchange had served its purpose, however, confirming Harlan's position near the rear of the cabin. Nathan signaled to Dakota, pointing toward the cabin's far side. The young warrior nodded, slipping away into the shadows to flank Harlan's position. More shots rang out, closer now as Harlan's men advanced under covering fire. Nathan counted bullets, waiting for a pause that would indicate empty weapons needing reloading. When it came, he broke cover, sprinting for the woodpile 20 yards away. A bullet tugged at his sleeve, another kicked up dirt at his heels, but he reached the new position unscathed. From this vantage point, he could see 2 of Harlan's men crouched behind the corral fence. He took careful aim and fired twice in rapid succession. One man cried out, falling backward. The other returned fire wildly before retreating to better cover. The night dissolved into a deadly game of cat and mouse, positions shifting, brief exchanges of gunfire followed by tense silences. 2 of Harlan's men were down, a third wounded. Nathan had taken a bullet graze to his left arm, but remained functional. Of Dakota, there had been no sign for several minutes. Either he'd found an excellent hiding spot, or he'd been hit. Nathan refused to consider the latter possibility. Then, from the direction of the barn, a woman's scream pierced the night. Bianca's voice, raised in pain or fear. The sound momentarily froze the battlefield. Bianca! Harlan's voice rang out, concern evident even through the tension. Taking advantage of the distraction, Nathan moved swiftly toward the barn. Inside, he found Dakota holding Bianca at knife point, her rifle on the ground between them. Blood stained her shirt sleeve where Dakota's blade had nicked her. Found her trying to reach root cellar, Dakota explained, his voice cold with hatred. She knows about Adia. Bianca's eyes locked on Nathan's, a complex mixture of emotions playing across her features. Nathan, she said softly, I didn't want it to come to this. What did you want, Bianca? Nathan asked, keeping his voice low. Gold? Revenge? What was worth massacring an entire village? Understanding, she replied, surprising him. The medallion is my heritage too. Half of my blood is Apache, but they never accepted me, not fully. Bitterness crept into her voice. I was always the half-breed, the outsider. Even my own father abandoned me. Your father died, Nathan corrected. He didn't abandon you. A strange smile curved Bianca's lips. Is that what you believe? How convenient. Before Nathan could respond, gunfire erupted outside again, closer to the barn. Harlan and his remaining men were converging on their position, drawn by Bianca's scream. Kill me and be done with it, Bianca challenged Dakota. Isn't that what you want? Revenge for your people? Dakota's knife pressed harder against her throat, drawing a thin line of blood. It would be justice, boss. Wait, Nathan interjected. We need her alive. She's our leverage against Harlan. The young Apache's eyes never left Bianca's face. She is Snake. Will bite when given chance. Probably, Nathan agreed, but killing her won't bring back your people. And it won't stop Harlan. And after a tense moment, Dakota lowered his knife slightly. I will spare her. For now. Nathan quickly bound Bianca's hands with a length of rope, then gagged her to prevent her from calling out to Harlan. As he worked, she watched him with those unsettling eyes. So like his sisters, yet fundamentally different. Check on Adia, he instructed Dakota. Make sure she's still safe. I'll deal with our prisoner. Dakota hesitated, clearly reluctant to leave Bianca alive, but finally nodded and moved to the hidden trapdoor. As he lifted it, Adia's anxious face appeared in the opening. What happens? She demanded. I heard woman scream. We captured the mixed blood, Dakota explained, helping her up despite Nathan's earlier instructions to keep her hidden. Battle continues outside. Adia's gaze fell on Bianca, recognition and hatred flashing in her eyes. Betrayer, betrayer, she hissed. You led them to our village, watched as they killed my father. Bianca met her gaze steadily, unable to respond through the bomb, but defiant nonetheless. The moment was interrupted by a voice from outside. Harlan, closer now. Bianca, answer me, girl. He comes, Dakota warned, raising his rifle. Nathan made a swift decision. Take Adia back to the cellar. I'll use Bianca to draw Harlan out. No, Adia protested. Too dangerous. He will kill you both. It's our best chance to end this, Nathan insisted. Go now! Reluctantly, Dakota helped Adia back to the cellar. Once they were safely below, Nathan turned to Bianca, removing her gag. One chance, he said quietly. Help me end this without more bloodshed, and I'll make sure you're treated fairly. Otherwise... Otherwise what? Bianca challenged. You'll kill me? We both know you won't do that, Nathan. Not to your sister's daughter. Don't be so sure, Nathan replied, his voice hardening. I'm not the man you remember. Something in his tone must have convinced her, for the defiance in her eyes wavered. What do you want me to do? Call to Harlan. Tell him you're injured, need help. Draw him into the open. Bianca hesitated, torn between loyalties. Finally, she nodded. I'll do it, but you have to promise me something. You're not in a position to bargain. Promise you'll hear the truth about Eleanor and Grace, she insisted. The real truth, not what you've believed all these years. Nathan stared at her, cold dread settling in his stomach. What about them? First things first, Bianca replied. Let me call Curtis. After a moment's consideration, Nathan positioned her near the barn door, keeping his rifle trained on her back. No tricks, he warned. Bianca drew a deep breath. Curtis, she called, her voice cracking with convincing pain. Help me, I'm in the barn. They shot me. Silence followed her cry, then Harlan's cautious response. Are you alone, girl? Yes, she lied smoothly. They've gone to the cabin. Please, I'm bleeding badly. Tension stretched for several heartbeats. Then came the sound of boots approaching cautiously, followed by Harlan's low voice directing his men to cover positions. Nathan pressed himself against the wall beside the door, signaling Bianca to continue her deception. She sank to her knees, allowing her bound hands to show as if she'd been tied and left. Curtis, she called again, weaker now. Hurry! The barn door creaked open slowly. A rifle barrel appeared first. Then Harlan himself silhouetted against the night sky. He saw Bianca and started forward, then froze as Nathan's gun barrel pressed against the base of his skull. Hello, Curtis, Nathan said softly. Been a long time coming. Harlan's shoulders stiffened, but he didn't attempt to turn. Reed should have known. Drop the rifle, slowly. With controlled movements, Harlan complied. The weapon clattered to the barn floor, the sound unnaturally loud in the confined space. Tell your men to stand down, Nathan ordered. They won't listen, Harlan replied calmly. They have their orders if I'm captured. As if to confirm his words, gunfire erupted outside, Harlan's remaining men launching an assault on the barn. Bullets splintered wood, forcing Nathan to duck while maintaining his grip on his prisoner. Dakota emerged from the trap door, rifle ready. 3 men, he reported, surrounding barn. Nathan's mind raced, calculating options. They were effectively pinned down, with Harlan as their only leverage. Before he could formulate a plan, however, Bianca made her move. Despite her bound hands, she lunged forward, ramming her shoulder into Nathan's side. The impact wasn't enough to knock him down, but did disrupt his aim. In that moment of distraction, Harlan dove for his fallen rifle. Dakota fired, the bullet grazing Harlan's arm. The older man rolled, coming up with a derringer pulled from his boot. He fired twice in rapid succession. The first shot went wide. The second caught Dakota in the shoulder, spinning him around. Nathan recovered, aiming at Harlan, but Bianca threw herself between them. Don't, she cried. He's the only one who knows. Knows what? Nathan demanded, not lowering his weapon. Harlan laughed, a harsh sound devoid of humor. She hasn't told you yet? About your precious family? Cold fury washed through Nathan. What about them? Tell him, Bianca, Harlan urged, a cruel smile playing at his lips. Tell your dear uncle what really happened that night. Bianca's face drained of color. Not like this, she whispered. No time like the present, Harlan pressed, clearly enjoying the moment despite his wounded arm. Tell him how the fire started. Tell him who set it. The world seemed to slow around Nathan, every detail suddenly sharp and clear. Bianca's stricken expression, Harlan's malicious grin, Dakota pressing a hand to his bleeding shoulder, the continuing gunfire outside. At the center of it all, a terrible suspicion bloomed in his chest. Bianca, he asked, his voice barely audible. She couldn't meet his eyes. I never meant they weren't supposed to be home, she whispered. Just a message, Curtis said. A warning for you to stop interfering with Apache affairs. The truth hit Nathan like a physical blow. You set the fire, he said flatly. You killed Eleanor and Grace. Not intentionally, Bianca pleaded, tears streaming down her face. They were supposed to be in town that day. The house was meant to be empty. When I realized they were inside, I tried to get them out, but the flames, they spread so fast. Nathan's finger tightened on the trigger, rage and grief threatening to overwhelm him. 5 years of mourning, of guilt, of believing he had failed to protect his family, and all along the culprit had been his own blood. They died screaming, Harlan added viciously, calling your name, Reed, wondering why you weren't there to save them. With a cry of fury, Dakota lunged at Harlan despite his wound. The 2 men crashed to the ground, struggling for control of the derringer. Nathan moved to intervene, but Bianca blocked his path. Nathan, please, she begged. I've regretted it every day. I was young, foolish, manipulated by Curtis. He told me you had betrayed our people, betrayed me. Get out of my way, Nathan growled, his voice unrecognizable even to himself. If you kill him, you'll never find the other Apache survivors, Bianca said desperately. He's ordered his men to execute them if he doesn't return. This gave Nathan pause. What are you talking about? The survivors from the village. He captured most of them. They're being held in a canyon 20 miles from here. Insurance, he called it. The gunfight outside had gone quiet. Either Harlan's men were retreating or repositioning for a final assault. In the momentary lull, the barn seemed suspended in time, 4 souls locked in a web of betrayal and revenge. Then, from the trap door came Adia's voice. She speaks truth, Soul Healer. All eyes turned to the opening, where Adia had emerged once more, the effort clearly causing her pain. She supported herself against a support beam, her dark eyes intense. "How do you know?" Nathan demanded. Adia touched her temple. "I have seen it. When I held medallion in prayer, spirits showed me vision of our people in Canyon. They suffer, waiting for rescue." Dakota, still grappling with Harland on the ground, looked up at her words. "Shiaz, you saw this in vision?" "Yes." Adia's gaze locked with Nathan's. "What matters more, soul healer? Revenge for past or lives in present?" The question struck Nathan to his core, cutting through the haze of rage. He looked from Adia to Bianca, then to Harland, the architect of so much suffering, now bleeding but still defiant beneath Dakota's grip. "We need him alive," Nathan acknowledged reluctantly. "For now." Relief washed over Bianca's face, though whether for Harlan's sake or her own, Nathan couldn't tell. He gestured for Dakota to pull Harlan to his feet. "Bind him," Nathan ordered, "securely." As Dakota complied using rope from a nearby stall, Nathan turned to Bianca. "If I find out you're lying about the survivors—" "I'm not," she insisted. "I've done terrible things, Nathan. Unforgivable things, but I'm trying to make it right." Nathan studied her face, searching for any trace of deception. Finding none, he made a decision. "We'll need to signal Harlan's men. Tell them he's alive, but captured." "They won't surrender," Harlan said, wincing as Dakota tightened the ropes around his wrists. "They're loyal to the mission, not to me." "Then we need to outthink them," Nathan replied. He turned to Adia. "You mentioned visions. The medallion. Does it truly have power?" Dia nodded solemnly. "For those with open hearts, yes. It connects to spirit world, shows what eyes cannot see." Nathan reached into his pocket, withdrawing the silver disc. It caught the dim light filtering through the barn walls, the ancient symbols seeming to shift and move. "Then perhaps it's the time we use that power," he said, an idea forming. "Harlan has spent years hunting this medallion. Let's show him exactly what he's been chasing." The medallion gleamed in his palm, a silent witness to the tangled threads of fate that had brought them all to this moment. A moment balanced on the knife edge between vengeance and redemption. Nathan and Bianca rode in silence as the rugged terrain of Three Sisters Canyon gave way to the dense pine forest that blanketed the northern foothills. The sun traveled westward across the sky, casting long shadows that stretched before them like ghostly guides. The medallion hung heavy against Nathan's chest, its warmth a constant reminder of the burden he'd accepted. They made camp as darkness fell, finding shelter beneath an overhang of weathered sandstone. While Bianca gathered wood for a small fire, Nathan studied the medallion by the fading light. The intricate symbols seemed to shift and change as he turned it in his hands. Concentric circles surrounding a central star pattern, with flowing lines connecting various points. He recognized some Apache symbols for the cardinal directions, but others remained mysterious. "It's older than the Apache people themselves," Bianca said, returning with an armful of kindling. "Or so the elders claim." Nathan glanced up. "You know about it?" "Only stories, legends." She knelt to arrange the wood. "My mother spoke of it sometimes, before she died. Said it came from the ancient ones who lived in these lands before any tribes we know." "Your mother," Nathan's voice softened. "My sister." Bianca nodded, not meeting his eyes as she struck a match. The kindling caught quickly, orange flames dancing to life between them. "She told me about you, you know, the brother who became a legendary gunslinger. She was proud in a way, even though she didn't approve. I was nothing to be proud of in those days." She thought differently. Bianca settled back, the firelight casting her features in warm, amber tones that emphasized her mixed heritage. "She believed you were fighting your own kind of war against injustice, at least until I stopped visiting," Nathan finished. "Until I disappeared into bottle and bloodshed." Silence stretched between them, filled only by the crackling of the small fire and the distant call of coyotes. The stars emerged overhead, brilliant against the vast desert sky. "Tell me about Ravenhair," Nathan said suddenly. "About Adia's mother." Bianca studied him across the flames. "You loved her." It wasn't a question, but Nathan answered anyway. "Yes, though I'm not sure I understood what love was then. She waited for you. Every spring she would climb to the high ridge overlooking the northern trail. Watch for days. Bianca's voice was matter-of-fact, without accusation. Even after she married Broken Arrow, she kept watching. My mother said it was because Ravenhair believed the soul healer would return when the people needed him most. Nathan's hand went to the medallion again. I never knew she married the chief. 3 years after you left, it was a good match. He respected her, treated her well. Bianca paused. Did you know that Broken Arrow once faced you in battle? Before the smallpox outbreak? Nathan's eyes widened. No, I don't recall. You wouldn't. It wasn't a formal battle. His scouting party encountered you near Rattlesnake Ridge. You were tracking raiders for the army. Bianca's voice took on the cadence of a storyteller. He said you spotted him across the valley, had him in your rifle sights. He prepared for death, made his peace, but you lowered your weapon and signaled him to go. You chose not to fire. I remember now, Nathan said softly. Young warrior, distinctive eagle feather in his hair. I didn't know it was him. He never forgot that moment. When the sickness came to the village years later, and you appeared offering help, he recognized you immediately, knew you were the gunman who had spared him. Is that why he accepted my help, because I hadn't killed him? Bianca nodded. That in Ravenhair's insistence. She saw something in you that others missed. She stared into the fire. Perhaps the same quality that made you cold-blooded in battle was what made you effective against the disease. That ability to remain calm in the face of death. The medallion seemed to pulse against Nathan's skin as if responding to the story. The elder at the canyon, he said the medallion was given to me years ago. Do you know anything about that? Not the whole medallion, Bianca clarified. Just a piece of it. The center star. What? The original medallion was broken during a conflict with Spanish conquistadors centuries ago. The pieces were scattered among different keepers for safekeeping. One by one, they were reunited over generations. She looked up at him. Ravenhair gave you the center star when you left, sewn into that leather pouch you carried. You never knew what it was, did you? Nathan's mind raced back to the small leather pouch Ravenhair had pressed into his hand the day he'd departed. He'd carried it for years as a keepsake until it was lost during a skirmish near the Texas border. I lost it, he admitted, in a firefight. Never knew what was inside. The medallion found its way home, Bianca said simply, as these things do. When Ravenhair died, the elders recovered the center star and reforged the medallion whole again. They knew someday it would be needed and that you would return to carry it. That's why Broken Arrow sent Adia to find me specifically, Nathan realized. He knew I had a connection to the medallion. Bianca nodded, then fell silent, staring into the flames. Nathan studied her face, seeing echoes of his sister in her features, but hardened by years of difficult choices. It's time you told me about Eleanor and Grace, he said quietly. The full story. Bianca's shoulders tensed. She reached for a nearby stick and prodded the fire, sending sparks spiraling upward toward the stars. I was 17, she began, her voice low. Living with Curtis after my father died. He'd become different by then. Obsessed with Apache legends, with finding their sacred places. He learned about the medallion from a dying medicine man captured during a raid. She paused, gathering her thoughts. Curtis discovered your connection to it. Learned you'd been given a piece. He sent me to find you, to retrieve it if possible. But when I arrived at your homestead, you were away. Only Eleanor and Grace were there. Nathan's jaw tightened, but he remained silent, letting her continue. Eleanor recognized me immediately, your sister's daughter, welcomed me like family. Grace was so young, so beautiful. They invited me to stay until you returned. Bianca's voice cracked slightly. 3 days I stayed with them. 3 days of family I'd never known. Eleanor shared stories about you, about my mother, showed me kindness I hadn't experienced in years. What changed? Nathan asked, his voice strained. Curtis arrived with 2 men. He was impatient, angry I hadn't completed my task. He ordered me to search the house for the medallion piece while his men kept Eleanor and Grace confined. Tears glistened in Bianca's eyes, reflecting the firelight. I refused. We argued. Things escalated. One of his men knocked over a lamp during the struggle. The fire spread so quickly. She looked up, meeting Nathan's gaze directly. I tried to reach them, Nathan. I swear by everything holy I tried. The men dragged me out while I screamed for them. Curtis knocked me unconscious, and when I woke, it was done. The house was ashes. Eleanor and Grace were gone. Nathan sat perfectly still, his face impassive, though a muscle jumped in his jaw. Why did you stay with him after that? After what he'd done? What choice did I have? I was complicit. Where could I go? Bianca wiped away a tear. And part of me wanted to believe it was an accident, that he hadn't intended for them to die. It took years to accept the truth, that Curtis Harlan would sacrifice anyone, destroy anything that stood between him and what he wanted. And what does he want with the medallion? Really? Bianca's expression darkened. Power, specifically the power over death itself. That's superstition, Nathan scoffed. You've seen what the medallion can do. The visions, the connection to the spirit world. Bianca leaned forward. Curtis believes the ceremonial cave in the Valley of Shadows is a doorway between worlds. That with the medallion and the right ritual, he can bring back those he's lost. His wife, Nathan realized. She died before he changed. Bianca nodded. Catherine, the only person he truly loved. Her death broke something in him, made him obsessed with finding a way to undo it. She stared into the fire. I've watched him sacrifice countless lives in pursuit of that goal. Apache, settlers, soldiers, anyone who got in his way. The weight of these revelations settled over the camp, heavy as the blanket of stars above. Nathan absorbed Bianca's words, testing them against his own experiences, his own grief. He understood obsession, understood what losing loved ones could do to a man's soul. Hadn't he spent years drowning his pain in whiskey and violence? I need time to think, he said finally, rising to his feet. Get some rest. We ride at first light. He walked away from the fire, finding a stone outcropping that overlooked the valley below. The moon had risen, nearly full, bathing the landscape in silver light. 3 days until the ceremony. 3 days to decide what kind of man he truly was, healer or killer. The medallion pulsed against his chest, warm as a heartbeat, as if responding to his thoughts. Sheriff Miller's office in the town of Copper Ridge was quiet as midnight approached. Only 2 deputies remained, young Watson dozing in a chair by the door, and Peters methodically cleaning his revolver at the far desk. In the back, 3 cells held prisoners. 2 local drunks sleeping off their excesses, and Major Curtis Harlan, who sat motionless on his cot, staring at the wall. He'd been like that for hours, barely moving, refusing food. The perfect picture of a defeated man. Which is why Deputy Watson was so surprised when Harlan suddenly spoke, his voice conversational. Tell me, son, did you serve in the war? Watson straightened, blinking away sleep. No, sir. Too young. Shame, Harlan replied, still staring at the wall. It teaches a man things. Valuable lessons about strategy, patience, opportunity. He finally turned, fixing the young deputy with his cold gray eyes. About waiting for the right moment to strike. Before Watson could respond, the office door burst open. 3 men entered with rifles raised, the remaining members of Harlan's band who had escaped capture at the ranch. Nobody move, the lead man shouted as a second gunman covered Peter before he could reach for his weapon. The third man moved directly to the cells. Major, you all right? Perfectly fine, Jackson, Harlan replied calmly, standing. Right on schedule. Within minutes, the deputies were disarmed and locked in the cells, and Harlan was free, buckling on a gun belt provided by his men. The others, he asked, checking the revolver's chambers. Cooper and Mercer were captured at the canyon, Jackson reported. Rest are scattered but waiting for orders at the secondary rendezvous. Harlan nodded. And the Apache prisoners? Taken to Doc Sullivan's, sheriff and most deputies with them. A cold smile crossed Harlan's face. Perfect. We move immediately. Gather the men at Thunder Ridge. He turned to the locked-up deputies. Gentlemen, I'd say it's been a pleasure, but I try not to lie unnecessarily. Watson found his voice. You won't get away with this, Harlan. The sheriff will have his hands full with the Apache refugees, Harlan finished. By the time he organizes a pursuit, we'll be long gone. He adjusted his hat. And before the full moon rises tomorrow night, I'll have what I came for. As the men exited, Deputy Peters called out, Reed will stop you. Him and the Apache. Harlan paused in the doorway, something dark flickering across his features. I'm counting on Reed being exactly where I expect him to be. He touched the brim of his hat in mock salute. That's the thing about predictable men with a conscience. They're so easy to manipulate. The door closed, leaving the deputies alone with the dawning realization that things had just gone from bad to worse. Miles away, unaware of Harlan's escape, Nathan stood watch while Bianca slept. The medallion had grown increasingly warm throughout the night, pulsing in time with his own heartbeat. He'd removed it from around his neck, holding it in his palm, studying the intricate patterns by moonlight. The central star, the piece Ravenhair had given him, seemed to glow faintly, responding to his touch. Nathan found himself tracing the connected lines with his finger, following their flow across the silver surface. As he did, images flashed unbidden in his mind. Ravenhair smiling up at him from beside a creek, Broken Arrow leading his people in prayer, Adia as a small child, learning to ride her first pony. These couldn't be his memories. He'd never seen Adia as a child, yet the images felt real, vivid, as if experienced firsthand. It's showing you what you need to see. Nathan turned to find Bianca awake, watching him from her blanket by the dying fire. What do you mean? The medallion connects to memories, not just yours, but those connected to it. She sat up, wrapping her blanket around her shoulders against the pre-dawn chill. What did you see? Adia as a child, other things I couldn't have known. Bianca nodded. Ravenhair's memories, perhaps, or the medallion itself remembers. She stared at the silver disc in his palm. My mother said it contains the collective memory of the Apache people. That's why it's so valuable. Not just for the gold in the sacred cave, but for the knowledge it preserves. Nathan closed his fingers around the medallion, feeling its warmth. I'm not Apache. These aren't my memories to access. Yet it responds to you, Bianca pointed out. The elder was right. You bridge worlds, just as the medallion does. The first hint of dawn lightened the eastern sky. Nathan replaced the medallion around his neck and began preparing to break camp. We should move. Still a day's ride to Thunder Mountain if we push hard. They rode as the sun rose, following a game trails through increasingly rugged terrain. The foothills gave way to steeper slopes, pine forests thickening around them. By midday, the imposing bulk of Thunder Mountain dominated the horizon, a massive uplift of dark stone rising thousands of feet above the surrounding landscape. There, Bianca pointed to a distinctive formation on the mountain's eastern face. Those 3 pillars of rock. The trail should pass just beneath them. Nathan studied the landmark, then consulted the crude map Dakota had sketched in the dirt before they parted. The Valley of Shadows lies beyond, through a narrow pass that's easy to miss. They urged their horses forward, but Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Twice he halted, scanning the ridge lines above, finding nothing but the occasional soaring hawk. Something wrong? Bianca asked after the second stop. Not sure. Nathan adjusted his hat against the midday sun. Just a feeling. Your instincts were legendary, she remarked. Curtis used to say you had a sixth sense for danger. Curtis talks too much, Nathan replied dryly, but he kept his hand near his Colt as they continued. They reached the base of Thunder Mountain by late afternoon, finding the game trail that wound upward toward the 3 stone pillars. The path narrowed as they climbed, forcing them to proceed single file, with sheer rock faces rising on one side and steep drops on the other. The valley should be just beyond that ridge, Bianca called from behind as they approached the pillars. If we push on, we can reach it by nightfall. Nathan was about to respond when the medallion suddenly flared hot against his chest. At the same instant, a rifle shot echoed across the mountainside. Rock fragments exploded from the cliff face inches from his head. Ambush, he shouted, yanking his horse around. Back down the trail. More shots rang out as they retreated, bullets kicking up dust around their horses' hooves. They reached a wider section of trail where a massive boulder provided cover. Nathan dismounted in one fluid motion, pulling his rifle from its saddle holster. Stay down, he ordered Bianca as he peered around the boulder's edge. Movement caught his eye, 3 figures advancing along the ridgeline above, using the rocks for cover as they worked their way closer. Another shot rang out, this one from farther up the mountain, suggesting at least 4 attackers. Harlan's men, Bianca confirmed, crouching beside him. But how? Curtis should be in jail. Should be, Nathan agreed grimly. Seems the sheriff's hospitality didn't agree with him. He took careful aim and fired, forcing one of the advancing figures to dive for cover. The sharp crack of the rifle echoed across the mountainside, momentarily silencing the attackers. Four that I can see, Nathan assessed. Probably more we can't. They're trying to pin us here while others circle around. He checked his ammunition. We need to move before we're surrounded. The valley entrance is less than a mile ahead, Bianca said. If we can reach it. They just follow us in, Nathan cut her off. We need to thin their numbers first. The medallion pulsed against his chest, seemingly in time with his quickened heartbeat. As Nathan touched it through his shirt, a strange calm descended over him. The familiar, icy focus that had once earned him the name cold-blooded. Time seemed to slow as his senses sharpened, perceiving details that others might miss. A slight movement behind a juniper tree, the glint of sunlight on a rifle barrel, the pattern of shadows across the trail ahead. Cover me, he said quietly, handing Bianca his revolver. When I move, lay down, suppressing fire. Don't aim to hit, just keep them pinned. What are you going to do? But she asked, eyes wide. Tom. Nathan checked his knife, ensuring it was secure in its sheath. What I do best. He moved like a shadow, using the boulder's cover to reach a narrow crevice in the cliff face. While Bianca fired steady shots to keep the attackers occupied, Nathan scaled the rock wall with surprising agility for a man his age, finding handholds where others would see only smooth stone. Within minutes, he'd flanked the nearest gunman, a bearded man focused entirely on the boulder where Bianca remained hidden. Nathan approached silently from behind, clamping one hand over the man's mouth while the other pressed his knife against the attacker's throat. How many? He whispered. The man struggled briefly before Nathan increased pressure on the blade. 8, he choked out. 4 on this ridge, 4 circling behind. Harland? Further up, with Jackson. Nathan knocked the man unconscious with the knife's handle and bound him with his own belt. 1 down, 7 to go. He moved to the next position, where 2 men crouched behind a fallen log. This would be trickier. As he considered his approach, the medallion suddenly pulsed hot against his skin. At the same moment, a rattlesnake slithered from beneath the log, causing both men to scramble backward in surprise. Nathan seized the opportunity, charging forward. He dispatched one man with a precise blow to the temple. The second managed to raise his rifle, but Nathan was faster, deflecting the barrel upward as it fired. The struggle was brief but violent, ending with the second attacker unconscious beside his companion. 3 down, 5 remaining, including Harlan. A shrill whistle cut through the air, a signal. The remaining attackers began retreating up the mountain rather than continuing their advance. They're pulling back, Bianca called from below, confusion in her voice. Nathan frowned, scanning the ridgeline. This wasn't a retreat. It was a tactical repositioning. Harlan was drawing them forward, toward the very destination they were trying to reach. It's a trap, he realized aloud. They're letting us proceed to the valley entrance. He made his way back down to Bianca, who had gathered their horses. Harlan knows where we're headed, and he explained. He's waiting for us there. Then what do we do? She asked. We can't turn back. The ceremony must be performed tomorrow night. Nathan checked his weapons, mind racing through options. We continue as planned, but more carefully. Harlan thinks he's setting a trap for us, but knowledge is its own advantage. As they remounted and continued up the trail, more cautiously now, Bianca studied him with newfound respect. You've changed, but not as much as you think. That was cold-blooded Reed I just witnessed. Nathan's expression remained grim. He never really left, just went into hibernation. He touched the medallion beneath his shirt, and now he's needed again. They rode in tense silence as the sun began its descent toward the western horizon. The 3 stone pillars loomed closer, standing like ancient sentinels against the darkening sky. Beyond them lay the entrance to the Valley of Shadows, and Curtis Harland, waiting with the patience of a predator for his prey to arrive. Twilight cloaked the mountain in deepening purple as Nathan and Bianca approached the narrow pass that marked the entrance to the Valley of Shadows. They'd left their horses hidden in a dense grove of pines and continued on foot, moving silently through the underbrush. The pass itself was easy to miss, just a slim gap between towering rock walls, barely wide enough for a single person to walk through. Without Dakota's directions or the medallion's increasingly insistent warmth, They might have passed it entirely. Nathan crouched behind a boulder at the pass entrance, studying the terrain ahead. No sign of Harland or his men, he whispered, but they're here somewhere. Perhaps they're already inside the valley, Bianca suggested. No. Nathan touched the medallion through his shirt. Harlan needs this to enter the sacred cave. He's waiting for us to lead him there. The strategy was clear. Allow them to enter the valley, follow at a distance, then strike when they reach the cave. Classic military tactics that Nathan recognized from his days as a scout. The question was how to counter it. We need a diversion, he decided. Something to draw them out of hiding. Bianca reached into her saddlebag, producing a small bundle wrapped in oilcloth. Will this help? She asked, unwrapping it to reveal sticks of dynamite. Nathan's eyebrows rose. Where did you get that? Curtis always keeps explosives with his supplies. I took these before joining you. A hint of her old defiance flashed in her eyes. Thought they might come in handy. They just might, Nathan agreed, taking the dynamite. If we can create a rock slide on the far side of the pass, it might draw their attention while we slip through another way. Is there another way? Nathan hesitated. Not according to Dakota, but... His hand went to the medallion again. Since morning, the silver disc had been showing him visions, flashes of paths and passages he'd never seen before. Among them, a narrow chimney in the rock face not far from where they now hid. I think there might be, he said finally. The medallion is showing me things. Memories maybe, or something else. He pointed to a shadowy crevice 50 yards south of the main pass. There, an alternative route. Bianca looked skeptical but nodded. I'll trust your instincts. What's the plan? Working quickly in the fading light, they set the dynamite charges among a precarious stack of boulders near the main pass entrance. Nathan rigged a long fuse, giving them time to reach the secondary entrance he'd identified. Ready? He asked, striking a match. Bianca nodded, her face solemn in the flickering matchlight. Nathan, if something happens to me... It won't, he interrupted, lighting the fuse. But if it does, she persisted, I want you to know I'm sorry. For everything. For Eleanor and Grace. For staying with Curtis all these years. Her voice caught slightly. For not being the niece you deserved. The fuse sizzled quietly, eating its way toward the dynamite. Nathan met her gaze, seeing genuine remorse in her eyes. Let's get through tonight, he said quietly. Tomorrow we can talk about forgiveness. They moved swiftly through the shadows, reaching the crevice just as the dynamite detonated with a thunderous roar. The explosion sent rock and debris cascading down the mountainside, creating exactly the diversion they'd hoped for. The crevice proved to be a tight squeeze, a natural chimney in the rock that required them to press their backs against one side and their feet against the other, inching upward in the darkness. Nathan led the way, guided by instinct in the medallion's warmth, which intensified as they climbed. 20 minutes of strenuous effort brought them to a narrow ledge overlooking a sight that stole their breath away. Below stretched the Valley of Shadows, a hidden paradise nestled within the mountain's embrace. Moonlight silvered a meandering stream that wound through meadows and stands of ancient trees. The air was noticeably warmer here, protected from the harsh winds that scoured the mountainsides. It's beautiful, Bianca whispered. Nathan nodded, equally moved by the vista. But it was what stood at the valley's center that truly captured his attention. A perfectly circular lake of still, black water, reflecting the stars above like a mirror. On its far shore rose a distinctive rock formation, a natural arch of stone that seemed to glow with an inner light in the darkness. The sacred cave, he murmured, just as the elder described. They made their way down from the ledge, following a steep but manageable path to the valley floor. As they drew closer to the lake, Nathan felt the medallion growing almost uncomfortably hot against his skin. We should find shelter until morning, Bianca suggested, eyeing the dark tree line warily. Harlan and his men will be searching the valley by now. Nathan agreed, and they found a suitable hiding place, a hollow beneath the exposed roots of a massive cottonwood near the lakeshore. From this vantage point, they could observe the sacred arch while remaining hidden from view. As Bianca settled in to rest, Nathan removed the medallion from around his neck, studying it in the moonlight. The symbol seemed more pronounced now, almost luminescent, with the central star glowing faintly blue. My mother spoke of this place, Bianca said softly, watching him. Said it was where the spirit world touches our own, where the veil between is thinnest. Did she ever visit? Bianca shook her head. Few are permitted, only those chosen by the elders, or by the medallion itself. She hesitated. Curtis became obsessed with the legends after he captured an Apache medicine man years ago, tortured the poor man for information about this valley, about the cave's power over death. You really believe it can resurrect the dead? Nathan asked, his skepticism evident. I believe there are forces in this world beyond our understanding, she replied carefully. This valley has been sacred to the Apache for centuries. They wouldn't guard it so fiercely if there wasn't something to the legends. Nathan turned the medallion over in his hands, feeling its weight, its warmth. Tomorrow night, when the moon is full, what exactly am I supposed to do? According to legend, you must take the medallion to the heart of the sacred cave when the full moon is directly overhead. Place it upon the stone altars there. Speak the ancient words of power. Bianca's voice took on a distant quality, as if reciting from memory. The medallion will open the doorway between worlds, allowing communion with ancestors, guidance, healing, or resurrection, Nathan added grimly. That's what Curtis believes. That's why he wants it so desperately to bring back Catherine. They fell silent, each lost in their own thoughts as moonlight filtered through the tree roots above. Eventually, Bianca drifted into an uneasy sleep, leaving Nathan alone with his doubts in the steadily pulsing medallion. He must have dozed off despite his intention to keep watch, because he awoke with a start to find the medallion floating before his eyes, or so it seemed. He blinked, reality reasserting itself. The medallion wasn't floating. He was no longer beneath the tree roots, but standing at the lakeshore, the silver disc clutched in his outstretched hand. He had no memory of moving. The black water before him was perfectly still, reflecting the star-filled sky and the three-quarter moon above. As Nathan stared transfixed, the surface began to ripple, though no wind disturbed the night air. From the water's center rose a figure, a woman, her long black hair cascading over shoulders draped in traditional Apache garments. Her features were both familiar and strange, aged by years Nathan had not witnessed. Raven hair, he whispered, his voice catching. She smiled, the expression achingly familiar despite the passage of time. When she spoke, her voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Soul healer, she greeted him. At last, you have returned to us. Nathan found himself unable to move, uncertain if he was dreaming or experiencing something beyond his understanding. Are you real? As real as memory, as real as love. She gestured to the medallion in his hand. You carry our people's heart, our future. I don't understand why it was given to me, Nathan admitted. I'm not Apache. I abandoned your people. Abandoned you. Sorrow touched her ageless features. You judge yourself too harshly, as always. She moved closer, her feet not disturbing the water's surface. The medallion chose you long ago, when you first came to our village, when you chose healing over killing. When you saw my people as people, not enemies. The elder said I bridge worlds. You do. Her smile returned. Born to one world, drawn to another. Never fully belonging to either, yet connecting both. Like the medallion itself. What am I supposed to do? He asked, desperation edging his voice. Tomorrow night, when the moon is full. Trust the medallion, she interrupted gently. It will guide you when the time comes. In Harland, he wants the medallion's power to resurrect his wife. Ravenhair's expression darkened. The doorway between worlds is not meant to be forced open. To do so would unleash case destruction. She reached out as if to touch his face, though her hand stopped just short of contact. You must prevent this, soul healer, whatever the cost. Even if the cost is killing again? Nathan asked quietly. Becoming the man I've tried so hard to leave behind? Sometimes we must embrace our darkness to serve the light. Her form began to fade, dissolving like mist in morning sunlight. Remember who you are, Nathan Reed. Not just healer, not just killer, both and more. As she vanished, the lake's surface stilled once more. Nathan stood motionless on the shore, the medallion burning in his palm, wondering if what he'd witnessed was vision, dream, or something his rational mind couldn't categorize. Nathan? He turned to find Bianca standing a few yards away, watching him with concern. Dawn was breaking, pale light seeping into the valley. "You were talking to someone," she said. "I heard voices." Nathan looked back at the now empty lake. "Just ghosts," he replied softly. "Memories." They spent the day in careful reconnaissance of the valley, always alert for signs of Harlan and his men. The sacred arch drew them inexorably closer, its smooth stone glowing amber in the sunlight. Beyond the arch lay the cave entrance, a dark opening that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "We can't enter until moonrise," Bianca explained, "when the full moon aligns with the arch." They retreated to higher ground, finding a vantage point among the rocks where they could observe both the cave entrance and the surrounding valley. By mid-afternoon, they had confirmation of what they already suspected. Harlan was here. There, Nathan pointed to a flash of movement among trees on the far side of the lake. 3 men moving toward the eastern ridge. "They're establishing a perimeter," Bianca observed. "Standard military strategy. Curtis will wait until we enter the cave, then strike." "Unless we draw him out first," Nathan mused, a plan forming in his mind. As the sun began its descent toward the western horizon, they prepared for the night ahead. Nathan checked and rechecked his weapons, while Bianca gathered kindling for a small fire near the lake, part of their strategy to draw attention away from their actual position. The full moon rose as twilight deepened into true night, its silvery light flooding the valley. The black lake transformed into a perfect mirror, reflecting the celestial dome above, creating the illusion of an endless void at the valley's heart. The sacred arch seemed to capture and amplify the moonlight, the stone glowing with an ethereal radiance. "It's time," Bianca whispered. Nathan nodded, the medallion pulsing against his chest in rhythm with the strange energies converging on the valley. He started to remove it from around his neck, then hesitated. "If anything happens to me," he said quietly, "take the medallion to Adia. Ensure it stays with the Apache people where it belongs." Bianca met his gaze steadily. "I will. I swear it." With that promise exchanged, they began their approach to the sacred cave, moving from shadow to shadow with the stealth of experienced hunters. The small diversionary fire they'd set on the lakeshore was already drawing attention. 2 of Harlan's men had broken cover to investigate, exactly as planned. They reached the sacred arch without incident, pausing in its shadow to survey their surroundings one final time. The cave entrance yawned before them, a mouth of absolute darkness despite the bright moonlight. "You should stay here," Nathan told Bianca. "Watch for Harlan." "No," she replied firmly. "I've come this far. I'll see it through." Before Nathan could argue, a voice spoke from behind them, cold, familiar, and satisfied. How touching. Family loyalty at last. They turned to find Curtis Harlan emerging from behind a nearby boulder, revolver aimed steadily at Nathan's chest. Behind him, Jackson and another man appeared with rifles raised. "Curtis?" Bianca acknowledged, her voice carefully neutral. "Did you really think I wouldn't anticipate your little diversion?" Harlan asked, gesturing toward the fire across the lake. "Give me some credit, Bianca. I taught you those tactics." Nathan kept his hands visible, away from his weapons. "It's over, Harlan. Sheriff Miller will have a posse on your trail by now." "Perhaps," Harlan conceded. "But by the time they find us, I'll have what I came for." His cold eyes fixed on the bulge beneath Nathan's shirt. "The medallion. Remove it." Slowly. Nathan made no move to comply. "You don't understand what you're dealing with, Curtis. The medallion isn't meant for you." "Oh, but it is." A fervent light entered Harlan's eyes, transforming his weathered features. "I've spent 20 years searching for it, learning its secrets, preparing for this night." He stepped closer, gun unwavering. "And now you'll give it to me, or Jackson puts a bullet through Bianca's pretty head." To emphasize the threat, Jackson shifted his aim to Bianca, who remained remarkably composed despite the rifle barrel pointing at her face. "He'll kill us both once he has it," she said quietly to Nathan. "You know that." Harlan smiled thinly. "Not necessarily. I've always admired your skills, Reed, both as a killer and a healer. I could use a man like you." "To do what? Help you tear open the veil between worlds?" Nathan shook his head. "That's not how the medallion works, Curtis." "So the Apache claim," Harlan replied dismissively, "but I have my own theories, my own research." His expression hardened. The medallion. Now, or watch your niece die before your eyes. Nathan slowly reached for the cord around his neck. As his fingers touched the medallion, it flared with sudden heat, so intense he nearly gasped. With it came a certainty, a knowing that transcended rational thought. You've lost your mind, Curtis, he said steadily. The medallion can't bring Catherine back. Nothing can. Harlan's composed facade cracked slightly at the mention of his wife's name. You know nothing about it. I know grief can drive a man to madness, Nathan continued, carefully removing the medallion. I know what it is to lose everything you love, to seek oblivion in violence, in whiskey, in obsession. Shut up and hand it over, Harlan snarled, gesturing with his revolver. Nathan held the medallion up, letting it catch the moonlight. The symbols seemed to shift and move across its surface, the central star pulsing with inner light. You want this? He asked softly. Come and take it. In one fluid motion, he hurled the medallion high into the air toward the cave entrance. All eyes followed its glittering arc, a critical moment of distraction that Nathan exploited without hesitation. His hand dropped to his Colt, drawing and firing in a blur of speed that belied his years away from gunfighting. Jackson collapsed with a cry, clutching his shoulder. The second gunman got off a wild shot before Nathan's second bullet found him. Harlan, however, had already dived for cover behind a stone outcropping. His return fire forced Nathan and Bianca to retreat toward the cave entrance, where the medallion had disappeared into the darkness. Inside, Nathan shouted, pushing Bianca ahead of him as bullets ricocheted off stone around them. They plunged into the sacred cave, into darkness so complete it seemed solid. Only the medallion, now glowing with an otherworldly blue light where it had fallen on the cave floor, provided any illumination. Bring it, Nathan instructed, drawing his knife to feel his way along the narrowing passage. It'll guide us. Bianca retrieved the medallion, its light casting eerie shadows as they advanced deeper into the mountain's heart. Behind them, they could hear Harlan entering the cave, his voice echoing off the stone walls. You can't escape, Reed. There's only one way in or out. The passage twisted and turned, sometimes so narrow they had to squeeze through sideways. The medallion's light strengthened as they progressed, revealing ancient pictographs on the walls, hunting scenes, star patterns, and symbols matching those on the medallion itself. After what seemed like hours but was likely only minutes, the passage widened into a circular chamber with a high domed ceiling. At its center stood a stone altar, a simple waist-high column of rock, worn smooth by centuries of ceremonial use. The heart of the sacred cave, Bianca whispered, her voice filled with awe. Above them, an opening in the ceiling revealed the night sky, with the full moon perfectly centered in the circular aperture. Its light formed a silvery column that illuminated the altar. Put the medallion on the altar, Nathan directed, moving to a defensive position where he could watch the passage they had entered through. When Harlan comes, I'll deal with him. Bianca hesitated. Nathan, there's something I need to tell you first, about why I really came with you. Before she could continue, a shot rang out, the bullet striking the cave wall inches from her head. Harlan stood in the passage entrance, revolver raised. Step away from the altar, he commanded. Both of you. Nathan aimed his Colt at Harlan's chest. It's finished, Curtis. Drop your weapon. I think not. Harlan smiled coldly, stepping into the chamber. You won't shoot me, Reed. Not in cold blood, not in a sacred place. He advanced slowly. Besides, you're curious. You want to see what happens when the medallion is activated, just as I do. I know what will happen, Nathan replied steadily, and it isn't resurrection. Harlan's smile widened. We shall see. He gestured with his gun. Bianca, bring me the medallion, now. To Nathan's surprise, Bianca moved toward Harlan, the medallion clutched in her hand. I'm sorry, Nathan, she said quietly, but he's right about one thing. I need to know if it's possible. Bianca, don't. My mother, she continued, pain evident in her voice. Your sister. If there's even a chance. Understanding dawned on Nathan. Bianca's motivation had never been about helping him or the Apache. Like Harlan, she sought the medallion's power to resurrect the dead, to bring back her mother, Nathan's sister. That's not how it works, he insisted. The medallion connects to the spirit world, but it doesn't bring people back. You don't know that, she countered, stopping halfway between them, the medallion glowing brighter in her grasp. None of us knows for certain. Harlan watched the exchange with calculated interest. It seems we share a common goal after all, Bianca. Give me the medallion, and I promise you'll have your mother back. Nathan kept his gun trained on Harlan. He's lying. He'll use it only for himself, to bring back Catherine. Perhaps I can bring them both back, Harlan suggested smoothly. Your sister, my wife, all those we've lost. Bianca stood frozen in indecision, the medallion pulsing in her hand like a living thing. Above them, the moon reached its zenith, its light intensifying as it poured through the ceiling aperture onto the altar. It's time, Harlan urged, the moment we've waited for. Give me the medallion, Bianca. In that critical moment, the cave filled with an unexpected sound, voices whispering in Apache, growing louder with each passing second. The medallion's glow expanded, casting long shadows across the ancient walls. What is this? Harlan demanded, looking around wildly. What's happening? The whispers coalesced into distinct voices, men, women, children, speaking in languages both known and forgotten. The medallion vibrated in Bianca's hand, its light now almost blindingly bright. The ancestors, she whispered, awestruck. They're speaking. From the medallion's radiance, figures began to form, translucent, shimmering apparitions that took the shape of Apache elders, warriors, mothers with children. Among them, Ravenhair appeared, her eyes finding Nathan's across the chamber. And then, stepping forward from the ghostly assembly, another woman materialized, fair-haired with familiar features that struck Nathan to his core. Eleanor, he breathed, recognizing his long-dead wife. By her stood a young girl of perhaps 8 years, Grace, their daughter, looking exactly as she had on the day of the fire that claimed their lives. Harlan had gone perfectly still, his eyes fixed on another figure emerging from the light. A slender woman with auburn hair and gentle eyes. Catherine, he whispered, his gun lowering unconsciously. The apparitions made no sound, but their presence filled the chamber with palpable emotion. Not sorrow or regret, but a profound peace that seemed to emanate from the medallion itself. Bianca stepped toward the shimmering form of a woman who could only be her mother, Nathan's sister, her hand outstretched. But before she could make contact, Ravenhair moved between them, her expression solemn as she shook her head. They're not here to return, Nathan realized aloud, understanding flowing through him with sudden clarity. They're here to show us it's time to let go. Bam! Harlan's cry echoed off the stone walls as he raised his gun again, this time aiming at the medallion in Bianca's hand. I won't accept that. Give it to me. Everything happened in an instant. Harlan lunged for Bianca, his fingers grasping for the medallion. Nathan fired, the shot deafening in the enclosed space. Harlan staggered but didn't fall, his momentum carrying him forward. As his hand closed around the medallion, a blinding flash of light erupted from the silver disc, accompanied by a sound like thunder. The force of the explosion threw them all backward. Nathan slammed into the cave wall, momentarily stunned. When his vision cleared, he saw Harlan lying motionless near the altar, the medallion on the stone floor beside him, its light now dimmed to a soft glow. The apparitions had vanished, leaving only the moonlight streaming down from above. Bianca groaned, pushing herself up from where she'd fallen. Is he dead? She asked, her voice hoarse. Nathan moved carefully to Harlan's side, checking for signs of life. No, but he's badly wounded. The bullet had struck Harlan in the chest, a serious but not immediately fatal injury. More concerning was the burn on his hand where he'd grasped the medallion, an angry red mark in the exact pattern of the symbols etched into the silver disc. The ancestors rejected him, Bianca observed, retrieving the medallion from the floor. His intentions were impure. Nathan nodded, applying pressure to Harlan's wound to slow the bleeding. Whatever power the medallion possessed, it had clearly judged Harlan and found him wanting. We need to get him out of here, he said. Back to town, to a doctor. Bianca looked surprised. After everything he's done, the people he's killed? I'm a healer now, Nathan replied simply, even for men like him. As they prepared to move Harlan, Nathan glanced around the chamber one last time. The ghostly figures were gone, but their presence lingered, a sense of completion, of cycles ending and beginning. His gaze fell on the altar where the medallion belonged according to tradition. The ceremony, he remembered. It wasn't completed. Bianca followed his gaze. No, the medallion must be placed on the altar at the height of the full moon, to renew its connection to the spirit world. Nathan took the silver disc from her hand, feeling its familiar warmth. Then let's finish what we came to do. With reverence born of understanding, he placed the medallion on the altar, directly in the shaft of moonlight. The effect was immediate and breathtaking. The symbols blazed with renewed brilliance, and the chamber filled with a soft blue luminescence that seemed to emanate from the stone walls themselves. No spectral figures appeared this time, but a profound sense of rightness settled over Nathan. The medallion had served its purpose, not resurrection, but reconnection. A bridge between worlds, between past and future, between the living and the memory of those who had gone before. It's done, he said quietly. Bianca nodded, tears streaming down her face. I see now. They're not lost to us. They're just elsewhere, watching, waiting. Together they lifted the unconscious Harlan between them and began the difficult journey back through the cave passage. The medallion remained on the altar, its light guiding their way even as they moved farther from it. By the time they emerged from the sacred cave, dawn was breaking over the Valley of Shadows. The first rays of sunlight touched the black lake, transforming it from mirror to water once more. Harlan's remaining men had fled during the night, leaving only abandoned equipment as evidence of their presence. What now? Bianca asked as they laid Harlan on a makeshift stretcher. Nathan gazed toward the mountain pass that would take them back to the world beyond this hidden valley. Now we return, to Adia, to the survivors, to whatever future awaits us. And the medallion? It stays here, he replied, where it belongs, but its power, its connection, remains with the Apache people, with all who would honor the bridge between worlds. Bianca studied his face in the morning light, seeing the peace that had settled there. You've changed again, Nathan. Not cold-blooded Reed anymore. Not just the soul healer either. Something in between, perhaps, he acknowledged. Something new. As they began their journey out of the valley, Nathan felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The burden of guilt he'd carried for so many years. The apparitions in the sacred cave had brought not resurrection, but something more valuable. Forgiveness. Release. The freedom to move forward without being chained to the past. The medallion's warmth lingered in his memory, a reminder of connections that transcended death itself. Not to bring back what was lost, but to carry it forward into what might yet be. The spring sun bathed the rebuilt cabin in golden afternoon light. Nathan stood on the porch watching Adia and Dakota instructing a group of Apache children in the garden they'd planted together. The youngsters, orphans from the destroyed village, laughed as they learned to distinguish medicinal herbs from weeds. 3 months had passed since the night in the Valley of Shadows. Curtis Harlan had survived his wounds, only to face justice for his crimes. He now resided in a territorial prison, his obsession with the medallion replaced by a hollow resignation that Nathan found more troubling than his former madness. The Apache survivors had established a new community on Nathan's land, building traditional homes alongside modern cabins in a unique blending of cultures. Sheriff Miller, to everyone's surprise, had supported the arrangement, even helping secure legal recognition for their settlement from territorial authorities. They're quick learners, Bianca observed, joining Nathan on the porch. She carried a tray with coffee and fresh cornbread, setting it on the small table between them. They have good teachers, Nathan replied, accepting a mug with a grateful nod. Bianca had chosen to stay as well, working to atone for her past by helping the very people she had once betrayed. The journey hadn't been easy. Many of the Apache, particularly Dakota, had viewed her with deep suspicion at first. But her unwavering dedication to their welfare had slowly earned, if not forgiveness, then at least acceptance. "Letter came for you," Maiden said, producing an envelope from her pocket. "From the university in Denver." Nathan took it, breaking the seal. He scanned the contents, a small smile forming. "They've accepted my research proposal, a comprehensive study of traditional Apache medicine combined with modern techniques." "Congratulations, Dr. Reed," Bianca said with genuine warmth. "When do you start?" "Not for several months, plenty of time to prepare." He folded the letter carefully. "I've recommended you as my research assistant." Bianca's eyes widened in surprise. Me? But I'm not. You bridge cultures, Nathan interrupted gently. Like me. Like the medallion. He gestured toward Adia and Dakota. Like all of us here. In the garden, Adia looked up, catching Nathan's eye. She smiled and raised a hand in greeting, the simple gesture conveying the deep bond that had formed between them. Not romantic love, but something equally profound. A shared purpose. A common vision. Her wedding to Dakota the previous month had been a celebration that combined Apache tradition with frontier practicality, symbolizing the path forward for their people. Nathan had stood as witness, honored to be included in their new beginning. Do you ever think about the medallion? Bianca asked softly. About what we saw in the cave? Nathan's hand went unconsciously to his chest, where the medallion had once rested. Though the silver disc remained in the sacred cave, sometimes he still felt its warmth, its presence, as if it had left an indelible mark upon his spirit. Every day, he admitted, not with longing or regret, but with gratitude, for the bridge it built, for the healing it brought. In the distance, beyond the garden where children laughed and learned, the mountains rose against the sky, ancient, enduring sentinels watching over the valley. Somewhere in their heart, the medallion waited, neither fully of this world nor entirely of the next. A connector of realms, of peoples, of times past and future. Like Nathan himself, no longer cold-blooded Reed, no longer simply the soul healer, but something new, something whole, a bridge between worlds, between who he had been and who he might yet become. As the sun began its descent toward the western horizon, Nathan Reed sat with his niece on the porch of his cabin, watching the future unfold in the garden below. And for the first time in more years than he could count, he felt truly, completely at peace.